Welcome into the Guru's Survivor Recap Podcast, episode 12. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe. You know where we are everywhere. Before we begin, I'd feel remiss if I did the energetic intro because we have to hold a 3-second moment of silence for Surrey Fields today. Thank you to all for participating in that with us. It is a full Guru boat here this week. We're in a somber mood, to say the least. I mean, look, you're not going to get the cheeriest version of us. You're not going to get the sparkiest version of us. You name the adjective, we probably will not be it. We will be awfully negative today. I apologize to everyone in advance for everything you're about to hear. If there's children in the room, maybe escort them away. There won't be swearing of any kind. Context will get a little heavy here. Guys, look, we're 50 here. It's been a ride for all of us. We've enjoyed it tremendously as far as the people we've got to see on our screens each week. However, the actual season itself, we have despised to record levels. And tonight, I feel like it was the cherry on the poop sundae. Like, without going into your spiel, save it for later. Just initial thoughts. Do not get into all of it. Just initial thoughts of your mood here tonight.
Cranky, agitated, not in a good mood is basically how I would describe after watching it. It felt like, again, I'm not gonna get into it, but just the lead up of it. I know, Theo, you're talking about off air. It's like we had just like 30 minutes of nothingness heading into the first tribal, and then we had the whole thing was not fun. I just thought it's very lackluster. It's been a very bland end game, which again Jeff keeps telling me the end game is phenomenal. Tonight, not phenomenal at all. I can't get there. I can't see it.
Yeah, I mean, I thought tonight actually, like, it resembled Survivor. Like, there weren't any twists. It was just regular vote outs. But unfortunately, due to the season of twists, we're just a lot of these people left just aren't that interesting, or they aren't interesting together to give us what you would expect out of a penultimate episode of a season like this.
Think you hit the nail on the head here. We're going to have to do the pod. We'll complain the entire time, but we got to get a little pep in our step here. We're going to start from the top, which actually isn't the episode itself. It's a variety interview that released before Survivor tonight, which said that the franchise has earned CBS. Now, Mike, I want you to guess. Survivor ratings are kind of down. The budget is slashed because, apparently the show's not doing well. How do you think Survivor's doing financially? Do you think it's really bad? Do you think it's a little better than people think? What do you think?
I didn't think it was too bad. I don't know. I think I'd say lukewarm. I know it's lower budget, but I think that overall, I wouldn't guess it's too bad. Although the signs this season of getting every single celebrity, A-list celebrity, to kind of market it, maybe it's not doing as well. But I don't know. I don't know about a number specifically.
Theo?
Are we talking per year? Like, how
Just maybe the last 4 years. Do you think it's
last
like in the
four?
gutter? Do you think it's okay?
I don't know about
I'm
in the
sure
gutter.
they're still turning out a profit. I mean, they seem determined to do so. If they're not, then there's not many more budget cuts we could make. Let me just say that.
So according to Variety, the show that is apparently like homeless and no one watches anymore and they have to cut all these things back only made $273 million the last 4 years. Oh, just a little drop in the bucket. We can't actually go anywhere anymore because they're not making money. But, $250 million for one franchise across 8 seasons, most of which fans didn't even care for. Just thought that was, just a little interesting. I
Nothing.
thought we should throw that out there before we get into this review here because I think all the time we hear Survivor, on a life raft here. We don't know how well the show's doing and all this, but $273 million. To me, I think we can scale up the days just a little bit. I'm just going to throw that out there, And not to mention, it's not like they were paying these returners a lot. There was a base rate. Now, Tyson, who won many moons ago and was on Winners at War, said that even though he was a winner and needed for Winners at War, that he didn't get as paid as much as some of his compadres on that season, which I think is pretty important to mention here because we don't know the actual pay discrepancy of some of these cast members. Like, we have to assume, no matter what they're telling us, that Sari probably got more than Riz God. I'm just going to throw that out there. But, regardless, I think Survivor's doing okay. So remember that when we complain the next hour and a half about how ridiculous these twists are to draw up controversy. They don't need to do that. They just simply do not need to do that. We're in a fine place. We're making plenty of money. We can inject even more money into this project. And I guarantee you these profits will, rise. But we haven't figured that out yet. Back to the episode. Now that I got that off my chest, Devins feels like he burned the bridge with Suri, but
Another
he
one.
has to look for an idol because, again, post merge, we really haven't seen anyone look for an idol. It has not been something that has been on television that we've seen anyway. So it's been a weird dynamic here. At this point, usually we get a lot of idol hunting, but it's kind of going under the radar here. But Devins is feeling the heat. Rizzo claims that Ozzy was a sinking ship. He comes back and he's like, "Look, Serene needed him more than I did. Like it's that simple. He simply laid out the entire game plan, and I couldn't be associated with that." And Ceree's pretty pissed off by what she's hearing about Ozzy blabbering. She's like, "I cannot believe he did this." She kind of shared a similar sentiment that me and Theo did, where it was like, "Look, you just didn't have to do this. He was playing too hard for a jury vote when in reality, if he was just a nice guy, perhaps he could have got a jury vote." And then tonight, it feels like if Ozzy went to the end with Ceree, there was a 0.000 chance he was getting Aubrey's vote anyway. So that makes the move even worse because it's evident to me that those two are tight in real life. So I mean, just add another layer to that awful move from last week. Sari is kind of taking in this information. Mike, I want to hear your thoughts here because this is the first time we've seen something really like this. We've seen the splits like this happen. I can't remember a time where someone's who's in the driving seat of the season loses an ally this late to a twist of this nature. It's a very interesting predicament to be in. And she's not there to witness any of it, so she's hearing it all secondhand. But it's pretty obvious to her that this is reality for what happened. What do you think it's Cerise doing here?
Panicking. I mean, you can't lose your number one ally at heading into final 7. It's just too big of a loss, too close to the end game. Obviously we know we've already spent time on Ozzy's downfall. There's no one to blame besides Ozzy. Ozzy's got no one to blame but himself. It was a bad move. We know how bad of a move it was. And again, we learned again today how bad of a move it is. But overall, for her, I think she's kind of freaking out because again, the numbers are dwindling. And despite her having enough pull with everybody else, we talked about last week, she kind of needs Ozzy there to get her to the end. She can't really win individual immunities. She can't really make fire. She's lost that twice now. So she really needed Ozzy in the game. So I think for her, she's even though not even witnessing it, it's just adding salt in the wound, basically. But she really needed Ozzy in the game for her, and Rizzo coming back with the bad news does not make it any easier for her or Tiff, even though Tiff obviously was, trying to gun and get Ozzy out from afar. It's a big, big loss for Sheree.
Yeah, I mean, 100% gonna echo the same thing. Again, the way she needs to win the game is she needs tight allies that'll decide to bring her to the end of the game. I think that's gonna be her fatal mistake of this season. I think all of her conversations, she was brilliant socially the whole game, but she just made a bad decision on who to play the game with. And I'm not even sure that there were better options for her. I think that's kind of who was out there, but ultimately deciding to play the game with Ozzy and with Rizzo is what sunk her season 50.
Because ultimately it was a tribal council that Sari was not even a part of. It was Rizzo and Ozzy, her two alliance members. That tribal council that they both attended and she did not. That really ended her game in a way because one of them is turning on the other one and then coming back, and you really can't fully trust Rizzo now because he just turned on Ozzy. So who's to say you can't turn on him on Sari now?
Now, real fast, Rizzo obviously had an excuse handed to him. But even before that, there was a push from Jonathan in particular to get Ozzy out. Do you think there was a chance that Rizzo, given the information now you know from this episode, compiled with last, do you think there's a chance he was going to turn on Ozzy anyway?
I do, because in the confessional, like you said, it felt like Rizzo said he doesn't really need Ozzy as an ally anymore, which is kind of what I said last week. I said, the only rationalize I can do with Rizzo here as why to not clue him in is if he thinks he just didn't really need Ozzy anymore. Ozzy had already blown up his own game, and being attached to him was negative for Rizzo. That's what my thinking was as to why Rizzo let him go, and kind of confirmed today. But if you're saying hindsight's 2020, and I know what happens in this episode, if I'm Rizzo, I would have clued Ozzy in, knowing how the game is now.
No,
shifting.
Mike. Even different though than what you're talking
Oh, you're
about.
saying
I'm
what do you
saying if Ozzy didn't blow up his game,
yeah,
do
yeah,
you
I
think
think
Rizzo turns on him?
he turns on him anyways. I don't think it would have been that tribal council. If you're saying in the hypothetical scenario he stays, would Rizzo have cut him after final 8 in this case?
I was talking about specifically last tribal because I think it's easy to use as an excuse. Like, look, he blew up his game, but there was
Mm,
rumblings already from
maybe.
Jonathan, and then he was obviously going to try to get Joe on board. Rizzo would have been the real swing there.
Okay.
Do you think Rizzo could have looked at the landscape there, even without the information that he's blowing himself up in real time? Do you think he
Right.
turns on him?
So you're saying that without the excuse of Ozzy blew up his own game, does he still turn on Ozzy?
Exactly.
Maybe.
It doesn't seem like he was thinking that way, but I feel like that was such a good opportunity for Rizzo because of the information he had from Joe. He could have made a move, and it kind of would have been Rizzo's move because he passed on the information, but it would have been Ozzy using his idol. So Rizzo would have gotten credit for like an idol move while also holding on to his own idol, which I feel like he should have taken advantage of that. Because I just like we're running out of plays from Rizzo here. Like I just assumed, like if he was gonna make an end game run, we would get an electric idol play from him at some point.
Yeah.
But we're just waiting
Basically,
week after week.
the play is he just went along with what was already happening because of the excuse that you already mentioned, which is Ozzy blew up his own game. If there is none of that on the table and he still takes him out, I don't know. Could he have still? I don't think it's his move either. I think it's still credit to that was already happening because it was already set in motion with Tiff and Jonathan talking about it on the other beach, the one that the Rizzo was not on. So it was already kind of whispers of Ozzy. I think that if you're Aubrey here, maybe if Ozzy doesn't spill his guts out to you, maybe you're targeting somebody else. But ultimately, the Ozzy thing was already set in motion. I think it was just would Rizzo actually flip on him and not tell him to play his idol and just blindside him? Maybe that would have happened anyways. But obviously, it's a good excuse because Ozzy just kind of sunk his own grave.
Yeah, but I
To
just
be
feel like
honest, Theo,
I
the
was,
only thing I was going to say there is, to be honest, I think and I want to hear your thoughts on this too. I think he could have claimed it more of his move if Ozzy didn't blow himself up like that. I think then Rizzo could have said, "This was the time I thought I had to cut bait. There wasn't one big reason to do so." I feel like him just jumping in on the plan with everyone else, that really discredited what he actually did, which was withhold the information from Ozzy, allow Ozzy not to play his idol. I just feel like he kind of botched the entire thing.
yeah, because Ozzy like botching that situation just made him a target, like kind of a sitting duck easy vote, which Rizzo knew about. So I feel like that's the chance if you're Rizzo, like instead of just piling on Ozzy in a move you're not going to get credit for, like he was in the position with the information because Suri kind of like telepathically was able to get information from one beach to another through Rizzo. And I feel like that's the opportunity where he could have gotten Jonathan out using Ozzy's idol, almost like taking credit for it, and then he still would have had his own idol to like get through these next couple tribals, like while having a big resume boosting win.
Well, I think it would have been to get Aubrey out because Jonathan had immunity, right? So it would have been. But
Oh yeah,
I
you're
agree
right.
with
You're
you.
right. You're right. You're
Right,
right.
but either way, I think that it's. How do you explain it to Suri then? If you just said I had to get Ozzy out, but there was no excuse at this point. I wanted to blindside him because I didn't need him anymore. Then you're burning another bridge. So
Problem with how this happened though is Ozzy's the one that got Ozzy voted out. So it's
right,
almost like no one is getting credit because of the way that it went down.
If he wasn't working with Serena Ozzy.
if he wasn't,
If
yeah,
he
but in
was
this,
a independent contractor,
right. If he's
here's a good
Tiffany,
one.
if he's
If
Tiffany,
he was Aubrey, he
if he
could
was
take
Aubrey,
credit for
yeah,
it. How funny is that?
if he's
If
from the
he
bottom,
was her, he
yeah,
could do this, but he
which
can't,
he
and
is.
we'll get more into Rizzo later. I don't understand what he's trying to accomplish. I don't get it. I simply do not understand what he is trying to accomplish here. But we move on to Devon's here, who's idol hunting at the crack of dawn. And
Finally,
Jonathan does the old school thing, which is basically like, I'm just going to be right by you. Which I always think is kind of funny when this happens, because is he just going to watch him get the idol? Like, I always thought, like, you should have like a contingent looking for it at the same time.
it's happened before.
And then also just have someone near the person hunting for it, because that way, like, you cover all your bases. And then we get to probably the moment of the episode for me where Devon's tears up for Joe.
I know.
Devon's tears up in Joe's presence about not wanting to go home. These mortal enemies, these two just absolute heated rivals, if you will. Devon's is just desperate here. He's like, I'm running out of tricks. I haven't found the idol. Might as well butter up Joe here. Anything here in what we called the nothingness before the first immunity challenge?
I didn't have anything here. I mean, look, I love that it was in here with Joe and Rick Devens, obviously, because they are mortal enemies, like you said. I was like, I'm glad this section made the cut because we know Joe had it was an emotional season, 48 that Joe was on. So obviously, you're seeing now kind of Devens breaking down, kind of peeling back the layers here of he knows that his expiration date is coming. We talked about this on last week's episode. There's not a lot of Rick Devens' friends left, and then obviously you come back to the beach and Suri, that bridge is burned out because he put 2 votes on her. Him and Emily did. So he's really losing a lot of allies here. So he's now going to Joe as like a, hey man, I'm just trying to stay alive one more day. It's one of those things like last ditch ever. So I'm glad it was in here, but it was like you said, it was part of the nothingness that was leading up to the Rick Devens funeral.
Yeah, not the way to appeal to Joe. I mean, you need to come up with like a past arrest, time spent in jail, family trauma, like that would have been the way to get to Joe. Even I don't even know if that I mean he had no chance of winning Joe over, I think, with where they were, but
You're a big
yeah.
Peja Stojakovic fan. You were crushed about 2002. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, that would have been the road he would have needed to go down, not just like, oh, I have no advantages. Joe was just scowling at him.
Yeah, Joe was like just kind of there. We didn't even really get like a good Joe confessional here. It was kind of just thrown in there to see, I don't know, more human side of Devens, which is kind of half this episode, which is Devens just being happy with his journey and being content, but not wanting to give up. But he mentions like he was a legit immunity threat on his season, and he has to try to reclaim some of that form here. And that's what we move on to is the immunity challenge. Another classic, the block stacking one where you have to navigate the rope. There's a platform you have to step on and off of, and you have to spell the word immunity. First one to accomplish that wins. And Joe, who won this his last season, wins this comp again. And I think it's impressive because Joe came out yesterday, mentioned he has dyslexia.
Yeah.
He mentioned how hard it was just to fill out his W-9, how it keeps getting returned back to him because he struggles with just filling in basic stuff there. So, he struggles with spelling later, a much harder word, I might add, apparently. But I do want to give him credit here because even with his disability here, he's able to overcome. And it's a good performance. And Joe, another immunity win to his name. He's making inroads. I think his GOAT case is growing by the week with how people seem to resonate with him. He's like the pinnacle nice guy, but no one takes him seriously as a Survivor player. But I do think he's playing a fine game. I think the fact that everyone does think he's really nice bodes well in his favor. He is one of the last like true comp threats on this season where it doesn't really matter the type of comp. Joe is still in it. So, we rag on Joe a decent amount. Me and Theo do. Mike's the biggest shill around.
Yes.
But I do think regardless, Joe solid output here and he gets the dub.
I'd say I'm the second biggest Joe shill alive. There's actually one bigger on Twitter. But I had in my notes here, this is not good for Joe because, again, it's a spelling challenge. Both challenges today are spelling induced. So I was kind of like, knowing Joe's, like you said yesterday, I was like, okay, maybe not made for Joe here. But he did win this challenge in 48, like you mentioned. He also won the other one on 48 where they had to hold their own weight. And that was, again, returned on this season, and he won that as well. So he's won 4 challenges. 2 on 48 that were the exact same, and 2 on 50 that were the exact same as 48. So he's, that's 3 now if you include the one with the duos with Tiff. So 3 individual immunities wins for Joe. I think he's playing like a much better version of Ken on David Millennials versus Gen X. I think he's playing a good game. Like I think people are like going to rag on him because they don't really think he's playing strategically. But I had in my notes here, Joe taking Suri and Rizzo on the reward, he puts in his confessional, was strategic, according to Joe. So if you don't think Joe's playing strategically, he even puts in his confessional, he makes a point. Yeah, that was actually pretty strategic. I want to make sure that Rizzo, he has an idol. I want to watch him. And Suri, obviously, he's got to keep close to him as well. So he said it was because Rizzo hasn't eaten in days. That might be true as well. And that Suri really needed it. But apparently, according to Joe, it was strategic. So I think he's playing a pretty good game. And again, I'm obviously, coming from me, that's not going to say much because I obviously think Joe is better than the entire internet thinks. But I think this was a big first half performance from Joe in this episode.
Oh, this was a Joe challenge all the way. He dropped either 0 or 1 time. I think he had to restart. Like he just went so slow, but just was in command the whole time, just going hilariously slow while everyone was dropping. one funny thing, there was more obvious spelling blunders later in the challenge, but in this challenge, Sari had immunity spelled out, and she grabbed the I before the other M, right before Joe finished. But I thought that was funny as well.
Yeah, and I thought only one person before this that I can remember has ever done this, and I'm like, "Why don't they do this?" And Aubrey did it here, so I wanna give her credit finally for something. She actually spelled out the word first in the order she needed the blocks, which I think is ingenious. I guess the only detriment to that is, like, if you drop them a few times, it's kind of useless,
Yeah.
but just don't plan on dropping them, and then you'll be fine,
And
and
Joe
it'll
didn't.
be much easier time, and that's what Joe did. He's like, "I'm just not gonna drop him. I'm just gonna go incredibly slow. You guys are gonna drop him a million times, and I'll be fine with this." It's weird. I feel like this is one of the only challenges that I can remember that I think people are actually worse at now than when it actually started becoming a thing. I feel like people used to kill this, and I don't know if they made it harder or
Maybe.
what, but it feels like everyone's kind of terrible at this now. And like even Joe, like he did really well, but someone would have just lapped him on a prior season. They would have just simply did it way faster than he did. So I don't know what's going on here.
You know what I think it was? There's been like fans can try out doing versions of challenges at these like reunion specials back when there was a live reunion, and people will come out and do that kind of challenge where you're walking backwards and stacking blocks. And I think it was maybe just too easy that the average person can do it. I don't know what it was because I haven't noticed it yet, but maybe the thing that holds the blocks together, maybe that's a little bit less sturdy. Maybe the getting up on the platform and counting to three. I don't know, something
Yeah,
about it.
maybe there's a little less slack. They had to
Yeah,
change
they
something.
had to
Someone
do
smarter
something.
than us can comment in down below because I feel like one of the things that annoys us all the time is we do these challenges so much. It's like, yeah, it's like the same old, same old. Usually they're better at it.
Put a
This
twist
is
on it.
one, I don't know. It's caught my eye the last few times they've ran it. I'm like, no one can figure this out. And I think it's, somewhat entertaining. I think this is one of the legacy comps that I actually prefer. But again, just another complaint. Can we please mix it up a little bit? And by the way, for 50, I think it's fine if you do recycled comps the entire time, but give the lore behind it. I know they did that with Second Chances.
Yep. Yep.
Believe they did it with Winners at War a little bit too. Give us the lore. Be like, we ran this one 15 times. We ran this one 10 times. We actually haven't ran this one since Palau. Like, do stuff like that. I think that would be really fun. But, it might cut into the $243 million of profit.
And by the way, they have stat nerds for those things too. Like that people are like, oh, they haven't run this challenge since this. Like they have people on the island that would tell them that. So I really wish that they could have, if they, in this allotted budget, if they can bring back challenges they haven't done since XYZ season 33 or whatever it was, because they do know when they have last ran a challenge. But right now, obviously, they're just using the same ones that they do every year. So it's obviously more recent to us.
So coming out of the challenge, it seems like the vote is on Devon's. Joe, Sari, and Rizzo all assume that that's the direction we're heading. But Tiff says, hold on a second. What about that pesky idol of Rizzo? Now, I want to pause here for a second because a few weeks ago, like, we were a little tough on Tiff. We said we liked Tiff. We thought she was a joy in the season. It was a shame that we didn't get to see her for the first, like, 6 episodes. It was ridiculous that Zach Brown was beating her in the confessional count to the point where a few episodes after, they were just throwing in random confessionals of Tiff just to say, like, she was in the episode. We felt like that was definitely post-production. But we were like, Tiff's playing a really good game, but it seems like she's just going to be a goat at this point because she has to throw like basically a perfect game from here on out. She has to play immaculately. She's trying her best. Like she's
She is.
doing everything she can.
She
I
really
don't
is.
think she could play better here. Yeah, I think this is a great analysis. And whether you think Rizzo has a chance in the end or not, because we've said multiple times that Rizzo is not going to be respected at the end because he's the young guy. No one watched the season.
Nope. Yeah.
Apparently, he was sick the entire time. Like, he's just not ingraining himself enough in Survivor 50 for him to realistically have a chance. But Tiff, that's not why she's trying to go after Rizzo. Yes, she's annoyed with his antics, but she's like, look, we need options. If he is still around with the idol in his pocket, we then run out of options for people
Yes.
to get out in the future. We want to have autonomy about who we decide goes home. If we don't have him as an option, then we're kind of shoehorned into doing what, other people want to do. And I feel like, I thought she did her best of getting this point across. And that is part of the battle here. You can have the best idea in the world. It doesn't really matter if you can't make other people buy in. I mean, look, we're not on the island. We're only getting the edit. I don't know what more she could have possibly done here. I think she illustrated this point pretty flawlessly here, where Aubrey like pretends to agree, but she's so gung ho on going to the end with Rizzo
With
now
Rizzo.
because she thinks that Rizzo can be that goat that she needs. And Aubrey's like, yeah, we have to get Devins out. He's too slippery. And then Cirie is like, we have to have Devins gone. He's far too slippery. What if he gets an idol? I feel like this is one of those things where Devin's aura, again, he's done a lot this season, but I do think it's the entire Devin's package. Mr. Beast probably isn't showing up again. He hasn't found an idol since pre-merge. And even pre-merge, it felt like they were
With
intended
him.
to be found because,
Yeah.
like everyone was finding Billie Eilish idols, and that was just easy. Everyone made the comment here, like it's almost impossible. Like everyone's out looking with other people at this point. Like you're not going to find one. So, Mike, I want to hear your thoughts. Like, what do you think of this? Because I understand why they're so scared of Devins and his chaos and all of that. But this feels like to me, this was the time to at least try to flush the idol from Rizzo and at least put votes on him to spook him.
By the way, did Rick Devins, this is back to the idol stink, did Rick Devins ever tell anybody that I actually did not find an idol pre-merge? That was Christian that gave it to Aubrey? I did not find it because everyone on the beach is assuming that he already found one pre-merge and gave it to Aubrey. He then found one at Tribal Council that obviously wasn't an idol actually, but was just the one he actually originally found, the scroll that Woody originally found. And then obviously he has the idol from Mr. B. So everyone's already kind of idled out. They're like, okay, Rick Devins has too many idols, and they're losing focus of the one who actually has the idol, which is Rizzo. And I think Tiffany's obviously like, hey, I don't want that idol going in the final five. I don't want to be advantage again, which is what got Cirie in Game Changers, where everyone is safe and everyone has idols. I want to eliminate that idol. I don't care about Rizzo being a final three go. I want to make sure that that idol is not something that can get me out at final five, final six. Obviously, that had to be executed in this episode and just wasn't. So obviously, good idea, good plan by Tiff. It just wasn't executed because obviously Rizzo still has that idol heading into final five. But I think that she's on the right track. Again, I have to push back on Cirie here. I don't really love Cirie's. Like, we find out later that Rizzo's not the best ally to have. But she's so vehemently like, I have to keep Rizzo. I cannot lose Rizzo and Ozzy back to back. It has to be Devins. It has to be Devins. And I don't know if it has to be Devins. I really don't. It could be Devins, and you can still get Rizzo's idol out so that you're not an option at the next tribal council. Because that's really what Tiffany's saying here. It's not that Rizzo's a threat to win the game. It's that Rizzo could be taking up one of your seats at the next potentially final five, final four, whatever it is. So I thought for Cirie, I would have loved for her to not be so hell-bent on getting Devins out, because I do think there was some traction to getting Rizzo, but obviously Cirie was like, no, it has to be Rick Devins. We cannot let him slide through one more vote.
Just going back to you talk about Joe's pick for the reward being strategic, it seemed like there was an underlying thing with Tiff where she was mad that Rizzo was getting food again because she felt he was like super wasteful back at the auction. So that became kind of a thing. I don't know if people then thought that was clouding her judgment when you're right, like it was a well thought out thing that they should have tried to get rid of Rizzo's idol. And even if you don't want to get him out, at least make an honest effort to convince him that he's going home so he plays the idol. I don't know why we haven't gotten that to this point.
That's kind of what perplexed me more than anything. They didn't even try to flush it. There was no attempt here. They were like, he might just flush it at this point just because, which I'm like, okay, huh. And this goes back to kind of our annoyance with the fact that we have 49 players on 50. That analysis never comes into fruition if they just got to watch last season. And it was annoying when Russell had that advantage in Heroes versus Villains. And it's annoying that Rizzo has it here in Survivor 50. And I'm just going to be honest about it. It's not fair. We have these integrity of the game people at every competition to make sure that the challenges are fair and that the right person wins and all of that. Like, where's that board for choosing the people on the season? Like, you're not going to have someone on Survivor 50 that can't run. So why can't you just make sure someone on Survivor 50 or everyone on Survivor 50 has an equal playing field as far as like their ability to know who each other are? That makes no sense to me. Everyone has Paramount Plus, I'm sure. They probably get a subscription through Jeff. I don't know. They're really pinching pennies over there in Survivor Land, but they all have access to download Paramount Plus and pay the subscription. They can watch all 49 seasons before this, or 48 by the time this got rolling here. So it's just not fair. It's stupid. And it's nothing against Savannah and Rizzo. Savannah, we loved as a winner. and Rizzo was a great character who we thought was like a real driving force throughout 49. But you didn't need to burn Savannah, who just won, and you didn't need to burn Rizzo, who's just becoming like a really good character. To be totally honest, I don't think the Rizzo character has progressed that much through 50 to warrant his inclusion. And Savannah was boned from the beginning because she had no chance. As soon as they figured out she won, they're like, we can't have you around. You just won. We know nothing about you. So I think all that ties in to this decision right here, where they're not taking Rizzo super seriously because they think he's like this dumb kid who doesn't really know how to play Survivor. But time and time again, he's been able to milk out these idols back to back. He's been able to make what he thinks are big moves at critical junctures of the game. And he played a two-faced game last go round. For some odd reason, Joanne and Sage kept thinking that Rizzo was with them. We still are perplexed why that happened,
No,
but
yeah.
it was the reality, and he was able to play both sides. Here, it's the same thing. And I don't think, I'm just going to be honest about it, I don't think if Suri saw that go down, that Rizzo was going to be number one on people she wanted to work with. So it's just kind of annoying because we eventually get to tribal council here. Rizzo does not play his idol, obviously. Devins, gets emotional and it's touching, but we kind of go quickly through it all. And he plays a shot in the dark. He says, I'm lucky. Not tonight, man, because it did not land. And
Never does.
Devins is a unanimous vote out. I want to hear your thoughts on all of this with Rizzo, just kind of him being on this season and this move here from everyone not going with Tiff's plan because like you mentioned, they didn't even try to flush it out.
The one thing I'll say about Rizzo on this season is like based from the confessionals, it seems like he is getting what he wants. Like he is kind of getting his way with most of the votes. But like as we've talked about, we don't necessarily agree with some of the moves or the reasoning but like behind some of the moves. But I do think that's why like in his head he thinks he is playing a great game because he's kind of getting his way all the time.
There's been a lot of consensus vote outs, which is probably why you're going to think that you are getting your way all the time. And I probably imagine that Joe thinks he's getting his way all the time, too, even though they're both kind of burning allies as they're getting their way. I think it's a good point. I do want to give Aubrey some credit here. And it's more going to come up here in the next tribal council than this one. Her ability, because Devins, obviously, after Devins hears that there's a plan that's not named him, because Tiffany obviously brings us Devins down by the beach. Evans kind of clues Aubrey in that Rizzo's a potential option to get out here. And while Aubrey's like, yeah, maybe Suri will go for that, maybe she won't. Aubrey wants no part of Rizzo going here. And while, I mean, we can agree or disagree whether he has actual win equity or not, she believes that the old school jurors are not voting for Rizzo in the final three. So she thinks that he's one that she wants to sit next to because he won't win the game. And at this point of the game, it really is all about who do you sit next with, who do you not sit next with, more so than getting out who people believe are the biggest threats to, have an idol, at whether they can make a flashy move, because maybe Rizzo can make a flashy move with the idol, but at the end of the day, the perception of what people think of the island is, can he win a final three against these old schoolers? And if that's not the case, then that's someone who you actually do want to sit next to. So I obviously would applaud Aubrey here for keeping Rizzo in the game, because she does, at the end of the day, get what she wants. He doesn't go home. I don't know if the idea was to make him flush it. I'm kind of with you guys. Why not at least have him flush the idol? If you want to keep him in the game, totally fine. If you want to sit next to him in the final three, totally fine. But why wouldn't you at least make him flush it? Even if there's like 2 votes going on him, whatever. This being a 6-0 vote for Devins, you could have thrown out 2 votes.
Mike, that's why I can't give her credit here, because in the very next portion of this episode, she's in trouble because of her reluctance to not even like float out Rizzo.
Float out
It
an
makes
idea,
no
yeah.
sense.
100%.
Like, at least float it out, at least try to get his gears going. And, Rizzo throughout 2 seasons, for the most part, outside of like the Nate vote, has kind of done everything he thinks he should have done. But it doesn't feel like to me the people on 49 were going to vote for him at the end if he was next to Savannah, even though we thought like there's a compelling case for if that would have happened, because we thought like Rizzo seriously had a driving force in most of the strategic side of that game, despite Savannah being a comp beast that she was. And the fact that he was toying around with his idol actually influenced votes that determined the winner of the season. Here, idol trickery, guess I guess is changing votes. I guess, but it's more the other people doing that because they're scared of it more so than Rizzo, who is like actually like flaunting it around and giving them fear. Now it's not even fear. It's almost like we don't care about it. And to me, that's kind of baffling because
Yeah.
why don't you care about it?
Why don't you
You
care about
know?
it? That's what I was saying, because these are good game players, and you should care about an idol, even if you don't think the person can actually win the game. If they have an idol floating around, I want to say it was 39, where like Karishma, who had no chance of winning the game, she had an idol, and they were like, okay, let's just make her flush the idol. Like, just get it out of the way. It's an idol, even if the person themselves you don't think is dangerous. The idol is dangerous. The idol absolutely is dangerous, especially when the numbers dwindle. And obviously, Sari knows better than anyone that how dangerous idols are. I mean, for God's sakes, Troyzan had an idol in Game Changers, and that saved him. He was never an option to go home because he was
Mike, I do
playing.
wonder if the idol wasn't of the Billie Eilish boomerang variety, if he could actually play it on someone else,
Somebody else, yeah.
would there be more of a precedent to try to get him out?
Maybe. I still think that the overall perception is that he really is not somebody that you want to take out right now because of how big the threats are. Devin, Sari, Jonathan can win comps, Aubrey. Like, there's too many other threats there to where, like, at this point, and I agree with you on 49. I think he actually would have had a compelling case against Savannah because I think he was much better strategically in Savannah. And while he doesn't hold a candle physically on the physical side. I thought socially. The reason why Juwan and Sage still thought that he was with them is because they were still close with Rizzo, not more so Savannah. But you got to give credit to Rizzo's social game as well as getting Blue Sophie. He was very close to her as well. So I think from a social aspect, he could have potentially sold his case. But again, they have no film on that. So they're just kind of thinking he's like not a very good player, maybe, and that the idol isn't that important because it's in the hands of somebody who doesn't really have any, like, he can't really do much damage with it. He can only play it for himself, and we don't want to waste it on him, waste any votes on him. But I think it's just short sighted. I really do. I think at this point in the game, if you can just throw a couple votes their way, I mean, there's been so many consensus vote outs. I just feel like you could at least on like a vote or two, maybe to spook them into playing it, because we've seen that too, where you just get somebody to play it, and then that is out of the equation, and you still get your way on who goes home, which is at the end of the day Devon's. But if Devon's shot in the dark did turn up safe, was there no plan B as to, hey, maybe let's just throw a vote on Rizzo in case that Devon's maybe has a shot in the dark and it plays and it hits? I just thought that could have been going through it. But again, they didn't show any of it. We honestly got like 5 minutes of strategy before we go right into tribal, and Rizzo throwing a vote or two his way never even came up.
Well, the reason the Billie Eilish idol sucks is that the other players have agency over whether Rizzo gets to make a move or not. Because if they don't write his name down, then he never gets to make a move with the idol. So I think it's 100% like that's why they don't really care about it as much as you think they should. Because at this point now, it doesn't matter. Like you've gone this far with it. Like maybe you do it now, but now, like, next time, like, no one's gonna write his name down, and then like he'll just play the idol and nothing will come with it. And it's because like the other players on the cast they had the agency on whether or not his idol was ever going to become important. Because if he could have done stuff, like if he could have made a move tonight to like save his ally Sari using the idol, like that's something that could have like been a massive move that all of a sudden would have given him equity in the game. But now he's kind of just like shit out of luck in terms of making a move unless they decide to write his name down.
By the way, real quick, last season, again, which they haven't seen, he literally played a fake idol for Savannah. He was like, "That's for Savannah." It ended up not even being an idol. Obviously, he kept his real one until the final five, which is exactly what he's going to do in this one as well. But you know, he has done the theatrics before. He's done all the theater with playing the idol or not playing the idol. He can't even do that with Billie Eilish because again, it can only be played for yourself, and everybody already knows that. Yeah, because it's such a public idol, and there's already been 3 of them. So it really does limit what you can do with the idol. But I mean, at the end of the day, still going into Final Five, because now there is no, well, maybe I won't, maybe I will. Final Five, you are playing it. It's the last one you can play. There's no vote at 4 unless the fans voted for no.
I don't think he's going to play it.
Well,
I think he thinks it's a better move if he shows up to a theoretical final 3 with the idol around his neck. That's the vibe I get from him. I don't know if that's real or not. That's just the vibe I get with how arrogant he is.
Right, here's the thing, because that's happened before, where someone is like, I don't even need the idol, I still have it, but they won individual immunity at Final Five. If he doesn't win individual immunity at Final Five, and he doesn't play his idol, that's a pretty bold move to make if you are that confident that you're not going home. Like, that would be like, you just play, like Sandra played it whenever, there was no chance Sandra was going to go home in Heroes versus Villains, but she played it in the last time you can, because why wouldn't you? Why would you want a souvenir? Unless you are that, you're that confident and you're that cocky that you can kind of flounder it out at Final Tribal Council. I don't know if that would, not a gamble I would take.
So let's put a pin in Rizzo, and we're going to deep dive him in a little bit because Tiff is still adamant that Rizzo has to go. She is so annoyed with everyone else. She's like, I told you guys. When are you going to listen that he's not playing the idol? He's not doing it. I can read this guy. He is not playing the idol. We either have to flush it or we have to get him out with the idol in his pocket. And then Aubrey is like, hold on. Like, we got to get out Tiff here because she is the
Michelle.
air quotes, Michelle level X Factor to the jury, which I have not seen once this entire time. I do not know what she's talking about. I think Tiffany is incredibly likable. I think she's done really, she's held her own at these comps. She's won a few here, and we'll get to perhaps adding another to her belt. But I don't see how those players are similar at all. Like, I feel like this is more Aubrey trying to rewrite her own narrative here, and that's what this episode felt like. Like, history is whoever tells it. That's the phrase, right? Something like that.
Something like that.
And that's kind of what Aubrey's doing here. Like, it's her version of history, and this is her confessionals of what she thinks are going on. But we know that's not totally accurate all the time. Like, she's not a good narrator here because she doesn't have as much agency as she thinks she does. And she kind of admits it in a backhanded way by her consistently saying she needs a big move. That is basically an admission of, I haven't made a big move yet. Mike, I saw your gears turning there when I said I don't think she reminds me of Michelle. Give me your thoughts on that one.
In a way, I think she could. If you just look at if you just compare Ko-Rong and 50 in no other season, there are some similarities where Michelle was on the wrong side of a few votes, Tiff's been on the wrong side of a few votes, lost some allies, and she's been able to get her social game. She's been able to repair some different relationships and then win comps down the stretch and win the season, which is ultimately what Michelle did. She won a few comps late, but she was such a good social player. I don't think they're that similar, but I can see where Aubrey's saying there's this woman who can beat me in challenges, that has some agency, that has some friends in the jury, and I'm scared of that. And I can see where she's making the comp. I don't think it's the best comp in the world, but I do. With 6 people left, I can see where she's like, okay, who is Michelle of the group? And of the 5 there, Michelle would be, well, the best player left is Suri, obviously. But if she's looking strictly at somebody who can beat her at comps, which doesn't end up happening, and who can maybe talk her way at the final 3 and has a good social game to tell, I would say that Tiff could potentially, like we said, has to play a perfect game down the stretch. But Michelle played the best end game of anyone in Ko-Rong and won the game. So obviously, if you're just looking at it from Aubrey's lens, the end game is so important, and Tiff's kind of crushing the end game so far. So she is not having anything to do with sitting next to Tiff at Final 3, which I do ultimately agree with her because I think Tiff has played a better game than her up to this point, at least, if I was on the island. So I'm with Aubrey in the fact that I don't think she's Michelle per se, but there are 3 individual immunities left to be had, and there are votes to be swayed, and Tiff's good with Suri, Tiff's good with Jonathan. Tiff was good with Joe prior to this episode, so I mean, there's certainly a world where you can see that she's a big threat on the island.
Yeah, I just found this incredibly revealing, especially if you're one of the people that's running with these theories that are everywhere that Aubrey's going to win this season. Aubrey's basically admitting here that she hasn't played as good of a game as Tiffany. And we all like Tiffany, but like Tiffany, like she's played a fine to good game. Like in no world has she played this like unbelievable game. So if Aubrey doesn't even feel like she can go beat Tiffany, like what does she think about her own game, and who does she think that she can beat? I mean, I don't. Maybe she
Rizzo,
does win
really.
the season next week, but I just still am not.
Can I jump in here for
fathoming that
1
angle of
second,
things.
Theo? You want to know who else has played objectively better than her? Which, like, look, just from a strategic standpoint, from a challenge standpoint, Jonathan has her in every category. What category has Aubrey gotten Jonathan in to this point? And I understand between the politics and all that stuff, people aren't super high on Jonathan. We're not talking about that. We're talking about purely Survivor 50. Like, how can you not, looking at this, between the honor integrity folks that he made in good with, the fact that even like someone like Ozzy, who I know was scorned by him after the vote out, but even still, how he got someone like that on his side, I don't think he's necessarily upset that many people besides D and Ozzy. It feels like everyone else has been kind of fine with him. Those 2 definitely were scorned by him, but even Tiffany, like, kind of got back on the Jonathan train here. That's how fast the game moves. So, look, Jonathan to me is also playing better than Aubrey, and if you look at it, that means the only person she's playing better than is Joe, and even that, I'm not totally sure. I guess, like, the narrative-wise, like, most definitely, I think people respect her infinitely more than Joe and Rizzo. I forgot to lump him in there as well. Like, they just like her more, and they like her survivor wounds, that they're more public, and they've seen them, and that she is this strategic mastermind of yesteryear, I guess. But if you're looking at it from, again, just Survivor 50, I think that's an argument, man. I do.
I think that if you're Aubrey, I think that she believes. I don't want to speak for her, but I think her ideal final three is Rizzo and Joe next to her. So in her words,
Yes.
because I honestly think that Rizzo's playing as good, if not better, than her right now. But she clearly does not think so, and maybe most people on the island don't. So we'll take their word for it. If you're Aubrey, you want to sit next to Rizzo and Joe because you believe, as everyone else does, that she's playing a better game than them. But I'm with you on Jonathan. Maybe there's too many people in the jury that are pissed off at him. Dee being the first one there. Emily, maybe not Team Jonathan. Ozzy, probably more scorned by Jonathan than Aubrey, because Aubrey was on the bottom and she was going to go home if it wasn't for anyone else. You know, it was going to be Aubrey or Ozzy. So I think he's more blindsided by Jonathan and more upset by Jonathan. And Ozzy is a scorned juror, as coach, ask Parvati. So he will not vote by, like, he will vote with emotion. So I don't think that Jonathan's going to get his vote as of right now. But I think that if you're Aubrey, you're looking at those old schoolers, so I think we want to take Joe to the end with you, and you want to take Rizzo to the end with you because you have more agency than them. The old schoolers won't give it to Rizzo. The new schoolers won't respect Joe's game, and you can kind of win that way. But again, as of right now, again, we have one episode left. I don't think she's playing a winning game right now. Like even today, I guess she got done what she wanted to get done, which is, keeping Rizzo in the game, getting rid of Devins, who's a big threat to win the game. But Tiffany didn't go home. Tiffany was one who she has in her sights, and Tiffany is still very much here.
I don't understand how Jonathan's name didn't come up because if you talk about the jury, I think he has probably 3 solid votes on the jury right now with Coach Chrissy and Stephanie, and I think he has a good story to tell at Final Tribal to swing a couple more. So yeah, I mean he's definitely playing better than Aubrey right now, and I this somehow just hasn't come into anybody's calculus that he has probably 3 guaranteed votes on the jury, and that arguably is playing better than anyone in the game right now, so could easily get more.
I'm a little worried that the reason why Aubrey has a chance to win this game and probably isn't taking Jonathan too seriously has nothing to do with what we've seen through 12 episodes. I'm a little concerned that she thinks she just has all these votes in the bag because she's friendly with all these people. She's been in the community longer than him. She's been on more than him. And it has nothing to do with the social game on 50 because I think
Yeah.
Jonathan has had a superior one to her. But if you look at it, she definitely has a Christian's vote. She definitely has Devin's vote. She definitely has Flippin's vote. So
Emily.
she also has 3 locked votes immediately.
Dee.
Not to mention, D is probably a lock for her. They're
If
close.
Tiffany's not there,
Seems like Cherie is a lock for her now. They're close. So it feels like it doesn't have much to do with the actual game itself right now. And it's more of a lifetime achievement thing, which I think could be a flaw of a 24-person season. I to say the least. I think there's probably too many juror members. I think there were too many people that kind of overlapped, and we talked about that way back when we did the draft, that there's 50 seasons of the show, 49 if you don't count this one. You can kind of go back to the OG a little bit more. You can go back between the stretch that really was underrepresented, which was that 20 to 30 range. So, there's a lot to make of it, but I am a bit concerned that that's where we're heading, where it's just she didn't actually outplay Jonathan, but we like her story.
Lot of friends on that jury, which is ultimately what the game comes down to. It's who do you put on that jury? And we talk about Genevieve and Jonathan not having anyone from their own seasons. It definitely did Genevieve in. It may be the reason that Jonathan does not win. But you look at Aubrey. Aubrey played with Ozzy. She played with Cerie. She played with Devins. Those are 3 people on the jury that respect her because they played with her twice now. She hasn't played with D, but she has D's respect. She has probably the old school's respect, even if Jonathan's not there. I don't think it's out of the question that maybe coaches be like, hey, Aubrey played a good game. So overall, she's got a lot of friends. You mentioned she's friends with Christian in real life, so that's another one that that's pre-game, whatever it is. It's someone on the jury. That's another Aubrey friend.
And Flippin.
and Flippin as well, another Aubrey friend. So even if they don't respect her game on the island, which they may already do, they might already like Aubrey's game. We're just saying, even if they didn't like Aubrey's game, they like Aubrey the person. And if she's next to Rizzo, who they know nothing about, and Joe, whose game they don't respect, or Jonathan, who they don't really respect that much, then of course that would be where your vote would go. So I think that right now it's more or less about who's playing the better game, because we can power rank these things all the way we want. In my opinion, I would have Aubrey lower on my power rankings than other people that she's talking about. But on the island, if they like Aubrey more, if they have past history with Aubrey, which they do, they don't with Jonathan, they don't with Rizzo, it may end up hindering their games and obviously buffering Aubrey's in the end game.
Yeah, I mean, if this turns into Survivor 50 in the hands of the friends, I'm not going to be happy next week. I'll just come out and say that.
And to be honest, I guess you can make the argument that perhaps she should have been a target prior, because it feels like they just don't take her that seriously.
Right.
Like, they don't. So I guess if her argument is like, you guys didn't take me seriously, but all my friends are here, how's that going to land? Because I guarantee you, I can see her final tribal now. It's going to be about overcoming adversity from Ko Wrong. She had to ace her endgame. She'll allege that she did that.
You will.
And she's trying to win it for her child. And all that's well and good. But that's not how I want to decide Survivor, is who has a better sob story and who has more friends on the jury. Now, normally, in a regular all-newbie season, the friends of the jury thing isn't a big deal because you just met each other and, it's whatever.
Yeah.
But here, it's like, oh, really? She just has more friends than Jonathan and whoever because she's been on the series for longer and she's played with more of these people and she's intermingled with more of these people for longer. It's like, we're gonna do that? Like, really? We're gonna do that? Because even, like, Heroes vs. Villains wasn't about that. Like, the right person won, in my opinion. And Game Changers, the right person won, in my opinion. Second Chance, the right person won, in my opinion. I want to hear, Theo, I know your gears are turning right now. Like, is this just because we simply have too many people, where it's almost like there's just not enough moves to be made to really stamp a massive game, and it's just going to default to, in the hands of the friends, as you tokened?
Yeah, I mean, at some point, I feel like having a ton of allies on the jury at some point should be viewed as a detriment to your game. Like, this is Survivor. Like, we want to see people form relationships and kind of keep those people in the game. But I just think we we didn't see any of that with, like, the structure of this season. Like, we were trying to come up with these factions, but nobody really got to, like, really play the game in a faction. So in that way, there was kind of like no really new relationships formed in the game that are able to overtake like pre-existing relationships and pre-existing bonds. And I think that's a horrible, like, red flag, black mark on this season.
I think what Aubrey can do is she can do something similar to what Sandra did in Heroes vs. Villains, which is just turn around and tell the jury, hey, I was telling you this the entire time. You didn't listen to me. I think what Aubrey can do, it's not more so to the jury, but it can be more so to whoever she's sitting next to. She can be like, hey, how did you guys let me get to the final three with all my friends on the jury? That's on you guys for not recognizing that. And ultimately, it's on Russell and Heroes vs. Villains for allowing Sandra to get to the final three with a bunch of heroes that all liked Sandra. And then Courtney, the one of the three villains that also loves Sandra. So it's honestly on the people that she's sitting next to. I don't know who Aubrey sits next to, but if it's two people that don't have as much friends, you have to know going into this endgame that Aubrey has a lot of friends on that jury. You cannot let Aubrey sit in those final three chairs with that information. So it's on them more so. Like, honestly, if you're Aubrey, you can be like, hey, guys, it's your fault. You let me get the final three. I can now pity party my way into being, hey, I have a lot of friends. They've seen me play 4 times. You guys have played once or now twice, and they're going to give it to me. That could be her story to tell, and I don't know if it's going to work or not, but the fact is there are a lot of Aubrey friends on that jury. Even Tiffany, who's not a juror yet and may not be, if Tiffany is a juror, we heard her first confession of the season was, I really like Aubrey. I don't know why. Like, her, maybe it's pre-gaming, but she...
What if that was planted a seed, man? Is that supposed to tell us something that we're not going to like, that she
I have
really
no idea.
likes?
I have no idea. I think it is something though, where if she gets to the final three, and it depends on, again, who she's sitting next to, but if you're Jonathan, can you just rely on the fault, or can you just default on the fact that you have a lot of friends in the jury? I know he has 3 with Coach and Stephanie and Chrissy, but Aubrey's got a lot more, and Aubrey's played 4 times, and that's obviously a better story at the end of the game.
Well, what's interesting here is Tiffany is supposed to be the plan. And if you're Suri, you have to be so annoyed by this because Rizzo's incompetence of not figuring out the Ozzy situation has basically led to the fact that the other side, if you will, has more numbers and they can kind of control what they want to control. Which, if you remember a few weeks back, I was perplexed why no one has targeted Jonathan yet because he does have sway with the Joes of the world,
Both sides.
with even Tiffany now, and it seems like he does have a relationship with Suri. He made sure earlier that like he had to tell Suri the plan, but
Then the hammock
put
fell
a
on?
pin in that because telling Suri the plan actually becomes a big deal here because Rizzo tells Suri about Tiff, but Suri's not supposed to know this because everyone knows that she's close with Tiff. They don't want the Suri fangs to come out in any way. That leads us into the second immunity challenge, which is an obstacle course with an arch spelling at the end. I have no idea why we didn't space these comps out. This makes no sense to me. We have back-to-back spelling agility comps. This is just stupid.
By the way,
Mike, you had something to butt in there, yeah?
real quick before we go to the challenge, I just wanted to put it when you said Rizzo when Rizzo tells Suri about the plan about Tiff, Suri says, "Well, what if Tiff wins immunity?" And Rizzo just flatly says, "I don't know. I don't know what happens if Tiff wins immunity." That I thought was really telling because at this point you can start to see Rizzo is now going to the other side, as you mentioned, because there are sides dividing here on this island. It seems like it's more Aubrey has gotten Jonathan and Joe into her side of the camp, and she was also working Rizzo as, hey, Suri's a big threat. Tiffany's a big threat. So she's planting the seeds and she's getting Rizzo on the other side. So I wanted to give credit to Aubrey there. And we see what happens, obviously, but if it's with 6 people left, who can get the majority with 6? Because obviously you need 4 as a majority. And it appears that Aubrey's getting her ducks in a row and she's getting Rizzo on her side too, to the fact where he's now contemplating maybe getting Suri out if Tiff wins immunity.
Yeah, I do want to say that narrative I can't totally buy in. I think Jonathan and Joe have Aubrey on their side, not the other way around.
I agree, but
Seems like they kind of have her fate in their hands at all times.
I agree.
I will give her credit for the Rizzo thing, but it's interesting. Does Rizzo go with Aubrey because he thinks he can beat her? That's kind of what I'm thinking he's suggesting here.
They think they can beat each other. So
Yeah.
Aubrey wants to keep Rizzo in the game because she thinks that he has no chance to win. Rizzo, I think, wants to keep Aubrey in the game because he knows he has no chance against Suri. So Aubrey is the lesser of two evils here. But I think, first of all, we agree that I think Jonathan is more so, he's gotten Aubrey onto his side. But I think Jonathan's good with both sides. That's why I think he's playing a better game than people think. But with the edit, we can't ignore the edit at this point. The edit is shaping out to be Suri versus Aubrey. Who can get the numbers to get the other one out? That's kind of how the last hour of the episode is set up for us, the viewers, to perceive it as. Am I wrong there? I mean, it feels like this is Aubrey versus Suri. Who can get the other numbers?
Yes, but I think it's also comedic that Rizzo is being pitched from Aubrey here, where Aubrey is like, you have to get out Suri. She's the one controlling everything. She's a legend of this game.
She is.
And Rizzo buys it, but I don't think that necessarily should be praised upon Aubrey because I think if you're Rizzo, you're looking at the situation. Aubrey doesn't have a resume. Like, it's impressive that I guess she's trying to get him to do what she wants. That's great. But Rizzo kind of has a point, I guess, because if you're thinking about it, what has she done? She hasn't won anything. She hasn't necessarily swayed any pre-existing relationship that she didn't already have on her side. She's basically survived because people have deemed her a lesser threat of all these other people that have gone before her. So if you're Rizzo, you're like, yeah, I'm actually gonna play with this bottom player because I don't think she's done anything. So it's not a great analysis because I think Aubrey has a million friends on the jury. And I think that that's what ultimately is going to lead her to the finish line here is that the people around her don't necessarily think she's doing anything impressive, but I think once the sob story starts and she can kind of paint the picture the way she wants, as long as she has a B plus or better final tribal, I think they're just going to hand her the win, man. I think that's where we're headed.
Well, so here's the thing. So the actual power rests in the hands of the 3 males. In the last hour of the episode, it's up to them what they want to do. That's why, again, it's perceived as Aubrey versus Suri. Who can get the other 3 men to vote out the other? Because we obviously know Suri and Tiff are going to vote Aubrey out. but it's what does Rizzo, Joe, and Jonathan do? And all of them, I know we're skipping ahead a little bit here, but I do think it's important that they're all checking in with each other. Okay, is Aubrey really a rat? Is she giving information to the other side? Is she playing both sides? Is she telling Suri things and she's also telling us things? Because obviously, if you're Jonathan, you're assuming that you're in the power position here. You're thinking that Aubrey's kind of playing the middle or potentially playing you in this case. So I do think it's interesting to the fact that Aubrey's game is kind of in the palm of their hands. Like it's up to Rizzo, it's up to Jonathan, it's up to Joe whether they actually want to buy what Aubrey's selling them. And again, Aubrey's not selling them anything crazy. Everybody at this point knows that Suri's a great player. Like I think Rizzo knew that when he had that conversation with Aubrey on the hammock, that Suri's gonna win the game hands down. Suri's a legend. She's better than Tony, better than Sandra. I think Rizzo knows that already. I think he's more so going that way because I think, like you said, I don't think he thinks Aubrey has much agency. Which I think maybe once they find out, not that Suri's gone, I think maybe once they realize that Aubrey has a lot of friends in the jury, it'll be too late. Because now there's only 5 people left. There's only 1 true vote left because 4 is fire. And I think that maybe they're going to realize, oh crap, Aubrey's got a lot of friends. She's played 4 times. It may have been we struck too late to get Aubrey out, and we could have had her win a chance. Because I think Suri at this point, even if you don't get Suri out now at 6, you can get her out at 5, and you can get her out at 4 because she can't make fire. We've been saying it for years now, so I think that ultimately it's a fatal flaw by all 3 of them. I think, but I understand why they think that they can't let Suri get any further.
The weird thing to me about Rizzo here, though, is he seemed gung-ho with getting Tiffany out instead of Suri. Like, he went to Suri and was like, we're going to vote out Tiffany. But then when she was out and, like, the equation shifted and it was Aubrey versus Suri, then he flipped and then he wanted Suri out. But it seemed like for a second he was still... it's weird that he preferred her in one situation but not the other.
That's strange to me, too. I would have thought... I guess maybe because he thinks that Tiff is a big... That's a strange one, though, isn't it?
No, because he basically admits that Suri's the biggest threat. So is that because she's the biggest threat left or what? He kind of is trying to have
But
his
then
cake
why
and
would
eat
he
it too.
rather get out Tiffany than her?
Exactly. It doesn't make any sense.
Tiffany's a bigger threat than Aubrey. He's saying that in his level of, I can't sit next to Tiffany, she's too big of a threat. I can't sit next to Suri, she's too big of a threat. Even though I'm working with both of them, I'm gonna have Aubrey stick around here because of the 3 big threats,
which I think is telling, to be honest.
I think it's very telling. Aubrey he was gung ho on getting Tiffany out. Tiffany wins, and it's between Suri and Aubrey. Which one of these do I want to get out? And he's favoring, obviously, Suri is a bigger threat than Aubrey. But to say that Tiffany, to be beforehand, before the challenge even happens, he's already like, yeah, let's get Tiff. And then maybe if it was Aubrey or Suri at 5, maybe who knows? Maybe it's still Suri. I don't know, but it's telling that the order of that was very strange.
Well, this only happens here because of the challenge. Theo, inconceivable. Do you need it in a sentence or you got it?
I N C O N CEIVABLE. That's just only one person needed to spell that word.
That's it. That's human Grammarly over there, Theo. In no time, figured that one out. I mean, look, it's harder said than done on the island, all that. But they did get the word pretty quickly. Like they did figure out what it was supposed to be. So at that point, can't you just try to spell it on the ground? It felt like they weren't even trying. They're like, how do you spell that? How do you spell that? They weren't even like trying to think in their brain like, oh, I and then N. Like, it was just so ridiculous. And again, Joe has dyslexia, so I will give him a pass here, even though he did just spell immunity. But this is a harder word, so we'll give him a pass. Jonathan, man. Holy hell. You do not have dyslexia as far as we know. What is going on here? Like, this is just brutal. And then Tiffany is basically like coming from behind here, just knows how to spell and wins it pretty quickly. She just puts it all together. She's not trying to help anyone else out. And Tiffany wins her 3rd immunity if you count the pairs one with Joe. So both of them kind of the immunity king and queen respectively here of this season. And again, Tiffany is playing about as well as she possibly can here. If they went with the Rizzo vote, or at least the idea to flush out his idol, I don't think anyone has played a better endgame than that in recent memory. Unfortunately, she's not able to accomplish that, but she does get the necklace here. I don't love this comp, again, as I reiterated a little while ago, coming after a different spelling comp of the same vein. I think it's just incredibly stupid, to be totally honest. But it's what we got, and Tiffany gets the win, which kind of throws off everyone's plan. It felt like she was going to be another unanimous vote. We've gone this entire time with all these people being the targets, just getting out one by one without much fight. So now we actually have to see these people play from behind. And as Mike mentioned there, it's Aubrey versus Cirie. That's kind of the only logical answer. But you can't float out that Cirie is on the chopping block because, as Rizzo mentioned, she's like the mafia. As soon as you mention her name, she will just figure out a way to turn it on you, and you are screwed. Rizzo tells this to Jonathan and Aubrey. Aubrey obviously is on the bottom. This doesn't mean much for her, but Rizzo trying to sway Jonathan here to their side. He's like, this has to be the time. It's what we just talked about. Out of nowhere, Rizzo is gung ho on getting out Cirie. And Cirie does sniff out the fact that it's her and Aubrey. She tells Tiffany as such. She's like, you are crazy if you don't think that my name is being floated out right now. It's so obvious. And Cirie is like, look, it's easy to twist Jonathan's arm. I have to at least work on him here. She's like, the Tiffany plan, Aubrey told me that. Like, I know that plan that I wasn't supposed to know. And basically, what she's trying to accomplish here is sow seeds of doubt between Aubrey and Jonathan, and basically get Jonathan to believe that Aubrey was working with Cirie this entire time and that he can't trust her at any cost. And she knows that I think Jonathan and Joe are kind of a package deal. So if he can get Jonathan,
You get Joe.
she can also get Joe. She has herself. She has Tiffany. I think at this point she still thinks she's good with Rizzo. I think she's definitely sensing that it's a little off between them. But regardless, all she needs is that big guy tandem, and she's in the clear. But what does her in kind of comedic fashion, is that Jonathan tells Joe the information, who immediately cross references with Aubrey,
Yeah.
which I think is pretty big. And I think that's a good move on Joe's behalf. He didn't have to do that. They could have just went out and changed their mind again, voted out Aubrey, and no one's the wiser. But instead, he cross references. Aubrey's pretty adamant, I did not do that. And this gets back to Rizzo, and he's like, look, I don't know what to say because I'm the rat here, but I have to go along and be like, it's clear Cirie is trying to stir up drama. Before we get to the vote, anything you two want to add here in this scramble between Aubrey and Cirie?
So Cirie knows that she's in trouble the second that Tiffany wins. She even said it. She's like, the second that I heard Jeff say Tiff wins immunity, it's a sinking feeling because she knows. And you, everything you mentioned is true. Also, with Jonathan comes Joe, and with Joe, honestly, comes Rizzo as well. They also always talk in cross reference before these votes, seemingly now in the end game. So she knows if she gets Jonathan, by virtue of just swaying Jonathan, with him comes Joe, and then with him comes keeping Rizzo on your side, obviously. So I think that Cirie does as well as she can here. I do, again, I'm going to give Aubrey a little bit of credit. Joe did not have to run and tell her this. Joe did not have to cross-reference. So the fact that Aubrey, whatever she did, she's worked Joe enough onto her side to where that he actually has some trust with her. Because I thought Joe was fully in Camp Tiff and Camp Cirie. At least he was in the prior episodes. He saved Ozzy multiple times by coming and telling Cirie, hey, this is what's happening. Coming and telling Tiff, this is what's happening. In this episode, and seemingly it's because of the vote last week with Ozzy getting out, and that he voted with Aubrey once, and now he's coming and telling Aubrey things. So credit to Aubrey for getting Joe on her side, even though to me it believes like it's Jonathan getting them on his. Like Jonathan has Joe and Jonathan has Aubrey, but I get with the way that they're perceiving it is that Joe is now more team or Camp Aubrey, and that's kind of what ultimately happens here. He cross references with Aubrey, and it comes down to who do you believe more. Aubrey's adamant that she did not spill this Tiff plan to Cirie. But how else would Cirie know that Tiff was the plan? She comes and tells Jonathan, how else would I know this? I have no reason to lie. So I think Cirie does as well as she can. And I think the point here I wrote down was Cirie says in her confessional, it's not hard to frame Aubrey because she's been floating all season. So I can say that Aubrey said this to one person and that she said something else to someone else because Aubrey's game all season has kind of just been floating around, telling people everything else, and maybe not necessarily leading votes like we said in this podcast many times, but she's kind of getting her way by planting seeds. She planted Ozzy's name a few times to Jonathan, to Stephanie. So I think Cirie knows what Aubrey's up to, and she's kind of obviously trying to frame Aubrey here because, of course, it was Rizzo who told Cirie, but it's Aubrey who told Rizzo. So really, Aubrey is telling people's plans to the other side. But ultimately, Sari does the best she can. She's trying to frame Aubrey. But I thought it was funny that she said she's been floating all season long, and it's easy to frame her.
Yeah, and I want to go back to the challenge real quick, just because I think Aubrey definitely knew how to spell inconceivable, and for some reason she decided to help the dopes Joe and Jonathan spell it instead of actually trying to do it herself. Again, this is someone that's like looking for stuff to bolster her game in the end game, and she like doesn't even attempt to win this challenge. So then Tiffany's safe, and then it turns into like an Aubrey versus Sari thing. I guess is how it's going to try to be interpreted. I think that's how like Aubrey's going to put it, is that she was pitted up against Sari. But I thought, like, honestly, I kind of thought, I agree with you, Mike. I kind of thought the Sari did what she could. The winner of it was kind of Joe for like figuring that out. Like Sari was planting webs and Jonathan couldn't catch it, but it was actually Joe that was able to catch that cross reference with
Right,
Aubrey
with Aubrey. Yeah.
and then come together and be like, yeah, Sari's the bigger threat. Let's get this done.
I just thought, and I texted this to you guys. I thought there'd be more of a cat fight between Aubrey and Sari. I thought that Sari would maybe masterfully shift the target onto Sari after Sari's trying to shift the target onto Aubrey. It really wasn't like that. I mean, again, we didn't get much of the lead up to Tribal. Again, it was kind of feel like it was rushed, but we got the Joe cross reference, like you mentioned, and like X mentioned, with Jonathan comes Joe. So it's really about working the three guys. But I thought that Aubrey would do a better job of. Like, it felt like her pitch was just, hey, Sari's a really good player. She's better than Tony. She's better than Sandra. She will win the $1 million. Like, Captain Obvious, like, we know that, obviously, duh. But, like, why wasn't that your main plan?
I don't know if I agree with the thesis, but we understand she's one of the best of all.
Right,
time.
okay, that's a good point, because I don't necessarily agree with the thesis. But basically, what her pitch is, Sari is so good. She's a legend. She's one of the best to ever play. We agree with all that, for sure. But she wasn't even the main plan. The main plan was Tiff. Sari is the backup plan. So how is a legend of the game, this great, phenomenal threat, how is she the backup plan heading into the day? Tiff was the plan. After the challenge, it's Sari. Is Sari really that threatening if she's a backup plan at this point?
Mike, here's the issue with Sari as a player and Sari this season and why this move made no sense on their behalf. If you want to actually go down this path and analyze people in a sports lens, which is basically like we're going to take our emotions out of it, we're just looking at your performance in each facet of the game. The reason why I can't, in good conscience, consider Sari a GOAT of the game, besides the fact she hasn't won before, despite all these terrible twists going negatively in her direction, she can't control her own path because she can't even come close to winning anything. That's the issue. She's never won a damn thing. And so everyone knows that. So if you just have her around for one more vote and then vote her out, to me, it's like kind of a waste to get her out now. There's no reason why you can't bring her to the final five. Rizzo Zeidel is solely for him, as we know. Since you're reluctant for whatever reason to put votes on him, it's not like he can try to finagle something, right? She's a sitting duck at that point. So all you're doing is burning a vote here. And then after that, like if you're, especially like a Jonathan, you're looking around like, okay, so I still have to compete with Joe and now Aubrey strategically and then Tiffany both strategically and in the comps. Like, what are we doing here? Like, shouldn't we have just got one of these people out? Like, I don't care who the argument is for, whether it's Joe, whether it's Tiffany. I guess she can't, obviously, because she wins immunity. But Joe, Aubrey, Jonathan, Rizzo to an extent, like all these people, with the exception of Rizzo there, have the ability to win something, have the ability to at least, punch their own ticket both strategically and physically. Sari doesn't have that. And if you get rid of Rizzo or Aubrey, then her numbers are really dwindling because I think there is a chance maybe if Aubrey didn't want her out and they needed to work up the numbers against the other side, those two could have worked together because they are good real life friends. If you get out a Rizzo here, then all of a sudden Sari's only vote next to her is Tiffany. And then by even then, Tiffany's like, we can't have her in the end. I'm not going to work with her anymore. It makes no sense to me. Like, yes, they get her out here in a 4-2 vote. And the tribal is a nothing tribal, which is even more weird because Devin's had a lot of time in his.
Yeah.
And Sari, obviously a legend of the game. I don't think she necessarily got the exit I was expecting here. I was expecting at least like a standing O akin to what Jenna Lewis got in episode 1, at least some tears. It looks like we got some of that. We didn't really get the big farewell. Everything felt a little weird, but I think it would have made a lot more sense. You give her till Final Five. She can exit even a little bit more gracefully than she did now. There's no chance she was gonna win anything, so what's the point? You're almost burning a vote. Like, it's kinda what it felt like to me.
That's why I completely agree. That's why I was saying I don't understand from Rizzo's standpoint because he's still adamant on getting Suri out, despite knowing that he's the actual rat here, and he can get Aubrey out. To me, this makes no sense from all three of them, from Joe, from Jonathan, from Rizzo. Why wouldn't you just get Aubrey out now? Your end game is so much more clearer now because by the way, Rizzo still wants Suri out. He's fully in that camp now. Tiffany by Final Five would probably maybe start to shift towards maybe getting Suri out. Jonathan, like you mentioned, if you keep Suri in the game and you keep Rizzo in the game, that's 2 of the 5 remaining players that can't win anything. I mean, again, Suri's played 6 times on Survivor, 5 on this and 1 on Australia. She does not win individual immunity challenge. She just can't win anything. So why don't you leave her in the game and leave Rizzo in the game, who's on like day 51 playing back-to-back seasons? He's not going to win anything. And then it's you, Jonathan, and it's Joe, Jonathan, and Tiff fighting for immunity. And those 3 can control what happens. They can get Suri out at Final 5. Rizzo plays his idol. Big deal. And then at Final 4, they can, make Rizzo make 5. There's such an easier end game if you're looking at it from those 3's perspective. Or I guess I lumped Tiff into that. But if you're Rizzo, it's the same thing. If you go with Jonathan and Joe and take out Aubrey.
No, you can lump Tiff into that, Mike, because now she's the biggest threat.
Now she's the biggest threat, of course, yeah. But from their 3 point of views, because they vote Suri out. Tiffany does not vote Suri out, but you can easily lump her into that 3 as well. Why would you keep Aubrey in the game over Suri at this point, like you said, with the numbers dwindling and Suri not being able to win anything and control her fate because she can't win anything? That's why she needed Ozzy in the game. So, yeah, Tiff votes correctly, I think. And if Rizzo just sticks with it, it's a 3-3 tie. Again, I know that with Rizzo, you have to get Jonathan and Joe as well. So it's really those 3 people controlling the vote. So once I saw the second Suri vote, I did was kind of it was game over because those 3 are going to vote together. You would think. I just think for all 3 of them, why not just vote out Aubrey, who's already kind of stirring up trouble? She's got a lot of friends in the jury. And then it's an easier path to the end for any 3 of them. If you're Rizzo, you have the idol at 5. You can play it to get to the Final 4. If you're Jonathan and Joe, you are the 2 biggest physical threats left on the island, along with Tiffany. You can get out Suri at Final 5. And then at Final 4, it's you 3 and Rizzo. It's just, to me, it's a way cleaner path to the end now than you have to deal with Aubrey, and you got to deal with Tiff. The combination of them both, Rizzo has the idol at 5. He's going to make the Final 4. So now if you're Joe and Jonathan, you got to be like, okay, we got to take out either Tiffany at 5 or Aubrey at 5, and you're leaving a big threat in the game at 4 who can win their way to 3. With Suri, you're leaving a big threat in the game, but you're not leaving a big threat in the game that guarantees her spot at 4 and then can win her way to 3. She can't do that. It's impossible. So the only person right now guaranteed at 4 is Rizzo because of his idol that they refuse to flush. And then if you're Joe and Jonathan, I guess you're fine with that. But now you got to deal with Tiff or Aubrey getting to 3. I don't love the optics.
Yeah, well, this season kind of fully encapsulated why Suri can't win this game, and it's because she needs someone to bring her to the end. And anyone that would bring Suri to the end of the game, like Ozzy was going to do it, anyone that would do that is a dumb player. Just anyone that would make that decision, they have to be a dumb player. And when you're a dumb player, you're not going to get to the end of the game to have the autonomy without shooting yourself in the foot, which is like exactly what happened on this season. So I agree. I think if you're Rizzo, if you're Tiff, this would have been the time to get Aubrey out.
Knowing that no one's going to take Suri to the end because Ozzy's not left in the game. So who at the end is going to bring? Is Joe going to win immunity at Final 4 and take Suri to the end with him? I don't think so. I don't think he's that dumb. Jonathan won't do that. He's not that dumb. Like he'll probably take Joe or Rizzo and make Suri beat somebody in fire. Maybe beat Tiffany in fire or beat, I don't know.
And by the way, I could see the comment now, like, yes, Sandra couldn't win either. But I think the difference between those 2, one of the critical differences is Sandra got a little lucky in Heroes vs. Villains just being on the right side of history on Russell. So I think that got her second win. And then her first win, she's just around a ton of unlikable people. So there's an argument that those 2 are like similar tiers of the game. Because if you think about it, like Suri could have won her second go round on Micronesia.
Yeah.
And there's a world where if we don't have the split here, she wins a season like this and is also a 2-time winner. But I just can't put her in the GOAT category because 1, that never came to fruition. She didn't win those seasons, right? But also 2, like if you're really a goat of something, you have to be well rounded at everything. Like we think of it like, business. You can't just have a boom period for 2 years. You need prolonged success throughout. If you're one of the best movie stars of all time, you can't just have a few big movies. You need multiple decades of blockbusters and different types of roles, like comedies and dramas and all that stuff. You need to show range as well. Suri has one gear, and it's an unbelievable gear. It is a 10 out of 10 gear, but she also has a 0 out of 10 gear, which I think is so glaring so often, where she runs this game strategically and socially. But when you're not flawless at that, which it's impossible to be, and I think she was as close as she possibly could have been in Micronesia, as much as she dominated the season, it's not the case here. She probably should have got Jonathan out earlier. She had a chance to go for Devins and Aubrey in one fail swoop and misread that Coach and Chrissy were the parents of that click, and that somehow getting them out would make the rest confused. No, it just made them emboldened to make the moves they were scared to do with Coach and Chrissy in the game. So stuff like that, that's why she can't be considered the GOAT. As much as we love her dearly and we think she was brilliant this season, and when we do award voting next week, she's probably going to be the unanimous 3-vote-to-none MVP of this season.
Yep.
That is kind of her Achilles heel at the end.
It is. I'm not going to co-sign that she can't ever win the game because she would have won the game.
No, she can't. She would have won if it wasn't
She
for
would have won
twist,
in Micronesia if it was not Final 3. Yeah, so she can win the game, but I do agree with Theo's outline of this is probably why she won't win the game, and I obviously same thing with second. She has to you have to have a third gear. She's got two of these gears completely locked up with the outwitting and the outlasting portion. Social strategic, she's just killed this season from a social strategic standpoint. But like Redemption Island, I thought Boston Rob dominated the whole season. But in Final Four, he has to win the final immunity. If Ashley wins final immunity, Ashley might win the game. No one liked Rob on that jury. They just hated Philip, and they thought Natalie was nothing. So at the end of the day, you have to pull out one. You have to pull out one, and he won his first individual immunity to get to the Final 3 and actually, eventually pick out who he wants to sit next to, which is Philip and Natalie, of course. So in Cerise's case, again, you can't win any challenges. You had to rely on. You didn't have to win any challenges to win in Micronesia. It's just unfortunately the twist screwed her there. On this season, a few gimmicks screwed her here. I mean, I'm like with you. I think that she should have got Jonathan out earlier. But even today, she's able to kind of swing Jonathan a little bit. Like Jonathan even says, Cerise making some pretty good points. I think it would have been easier for her to swing Stephanie. So I do still agree that she should have taken out Jonathan instead of Stephanie because she's had actual history with Stephanie. And I think you would have easily been able to get Stephanie to turn on Aubrey rather than taking Jonathan and getting rid of Aubrey. Because, we saw the seeds have been planted with Jonathan and Aubrey. But for Cerise, I do agree that ultimately there's a few things that she screwed up at certain points of the game. But ultimately, her downfall was a little bit out of her control again because the Ozzy Rizzo trial she did not even attend kind of spiraled her game. Her game was, she was the heavy front runner after or heading into that episode. And then after last week's tribal with Ozzy going and then Rizzo not cluing him in, it felt like her game was kind of on borrowed time. And I think that's at the time I was like, okay, this is now completely shifting. Getting Ozzy out of the game shifted tiers, and I think I still thought Cerise playing the best game, but her path to the end became so much more murky now. And again, that's a little bit out of her control. She knew that Ozzy was going to get some votes, but she couldn't clue him in. Rizzo could have, but he didn't. So ultimately, stuff that's a little bit out of her control. But again, she did pick these allies, as we mentioned before. So it's a little bit of luck, a little bit of, I thought this season mostly has been outplay, outwit, and outluck more so than outlast. But I do have to credit Aubrey. She's kind of benefited a little bit toward the luck portion, but she has been outlasting. I thought ultimately Cerise made some mistakes for sure, but it's just tough when you can't win individual immunity challenges. You have to rely on others to get you to the end, and she's not. The others were not able to get her to the end, obviously.
Yeah, because she did correctly find maybe the one person on the cast that would have taken her to the end. So she actually does deserve credit there. Just happened to be Ozzy, and he happened to flame out, and then he happened to flame out in a way that she had no autonomy over. I think if she was at that tribal, that idol would have been played.
Yeah, I think she gets her way. I mean, Ozzy put his foot in his mouth, and he had no one like Cerise to kind of unring the bell. So ultimately, if she's again, this is our issue with the merge. When you merge, if you just stay merged, and Cerise actually has control of every single vote, then maybe we could have seen a different endgame, but ultimately she wasn't there.
Yeah, she doesn't win. I don't think there's any way she could have won. When we did the draft, I said her and Ozzy had no chance, and I think both honestly showed better than I thought they possibly could have just with their baggage heading into this. But even then, like the likes of Tiffany would have been like, enough's enough. We have to get her out now because she's gonna win this game if we don't. Here, um, this is normally stock up, stock down time. Anything before we get to that segment that we need a sponsor for still? We are still waiting. Local pizza joints, chicken wing places, who's ever listening, we are available.
I was gonna say, like you mentioned that, like if you had told me when we did our draft that Sari would be in the penultimate episode leading up to the finale, I would have been like, how? How is it possible that she did that? So I overall think that I'm going to look back at this Suri game. I know you mentioned X a few times. Like, is this her best game? Like, of comparing it to Micronesia, I think we went back and forth a few times on that. I have to rewatch it again. But I think with all the gimmicks that they threw this season, with all the different twists and the this and the that, for her to get a final six again, it's just I
Can
can't
I
harp
answer that
enough.
real fast?
Yeah,
I think no. I was leading that train for a little while. I think no, because I don't think she could have played Micronesia any better.
no, of course not.
Because even though Cerie's game kind of has a shelf life beyond her first appearances, obviously she comes in first, loses in fire, despite she probably beats Aris in the finals there. But in Micronesia, I don't think she had the reputation of being like the most beloved human yet. And I don't think Parvati and Amanda truly clocked at that time how much Sari was liked more so than them. I think they thought Sari was one of them, which I understand why they thought that, because in their minds, they're like, Sari's controlling all of this. Obviously, she's just as bad as us. But I think between them winning the comps and all of that, and they were a little bit more forward in their analysis, and Sari's more of a bubbly human being than them. I think Sari appropriately saw that, like, even though they're winning, because I'm so tight with them, they will take me to the end, and I can just out talk them at final. It was all purely like, look, she got screwed. Like that's it.
I think if you just like the difference between those two seasons is at final six, she's able to, I believe it's final five or final six. She's actually the one that says, "Hey, can you convince Eric to take the necklace and give it to Natalie?" She's like that was her idea. The dumbest move ever in Survivor history. She's able to get Eric out with an individual immunity necklace and have him give it to somebody else. I know Natalie ultimately was the one who got him to give it to her, but Sari's the one who orchestrated the plan for that to happen. I think she definitely wins that final three. I think that James and Ozzy voting for Amanda, they voted for Amanda because they didn't like Parvati. They were scorned by Parvati, but Ozzy still votes for Amanda. But I think Sari gets a lot of those votes. A lot of those people just voted for Parvati or Amanda because they didn't like the other one. It was a lot of they don't like either one
Yeah,
of the women. Yeah, 100%.
definitely. But basically, what we're saying is there isn't anything she could have done
She could
besides
not have
win
been
the last comp that
right.
shouldn't have existed.
But
Here, though,
yeah,
here, there are multiple different things she could have done.
of
She
course.
probably could have made a better move with the duos twist. She probably could have made a better move targeting Jonathan at some point. To be honest, I think the Savannah thing was kinda lazy early. I think she could have targeted someone like Christian or Devins there, and that could have cleared up her path a little bit earlier because eventually Savannah was gonna be an easy vote down the road. It didn't have to be that early, but she likes those people, I get it. There's just a few different things I thought throughout where, like, she's dominating, but she did this, she did this, she did this. I think to an extent, unlike Micronesia, the rest of the cast here sucks strategically. They stunk like real bad. I think Amanda and Parvati could hold their own to Sari. They're not on that level, but they are as close as you're gonna get. Here, it's like, is anyone in second place? Like, who is in second place? And it turns out it's probably Jonathan. And
Yeah.
even
Yep.
him, he's the one who kind of bites here, as you guys mentioned. So I don't know. I don't know. Sari, I think she gave it her all. I don't think she played flawless. I think that was her only chance. She had to do every single thing right and have limited amount of twists. We had ample twists. She made a few minor but ultimately costly mistakes.
Yeah, it's also tough to play with all those twists as well. Like you have to navigate and do different things. It's more a lot of like I think that ultimately she got Eric to give up his immunity necklace in Micronesia. She was not able to convince Jonathan to keep her over Aubrey, which is ultimately that the difference in this. Like I think if she's able to get to this vote, she probably still can't win, so it doesn't really matter. like really the Ozzy vote was one where she really lost it. But yeah, there's a few hiccups that she actually did make. I mean, ultimately her exit in this episode was she was unable to persuade the three boys to keep it over Aubrey. But really, was that her downfall in the game? I don't think so. I think that there was other things that happened before that probably led to this. But I do think she did a really good job of keeping people in the game that just really liked her. Like Savannah was onto her early. Christian, even in his exit episode, was still coming to her, being like, "Hey, we should blindside he who must not be named, Ozzy." Like people still trusted Suri on this island. So even at Final Six, she really it felt like she had a lot of people that were still fully trusting her, which is really impressive. But to actually win the game, like she did everything right on Micronesia. She did not do everything right on this season. There was a few hiccups, but I still think overall like a really really solid Suri game again. Because we said in the draft, there's no way. I mean, she was our stock down on episode 1. It was like, oh, Suri, she's got short life. She can't possibly go to the merge and go deep in this game again. There's no way. And she does.
It's unfortunate. It sucks, but that's where we're at. It is stock up, stock down time. Sponsored by perhaps you. Let me know. Anyway, Mike, start us off.
Yeah. Again, the best player does not win every season. That's a ring thing. Like I thought Suri was the best player. Did not win the season. I will go stock up on Aubrey. Unfortunately, I mean, she does win that kind of battle of the Tiffany or the Suri versus Aubrey battle. She has gotten Joe and she has gotten Jonathan from her angle. That's who she's gotten on her side now, and it looks like she's in a good spot to potentially sit next to Rizzo if she's able to. Like she wants to sit next to him at the end. Maybe it's vice versa as well. But she's set up her end game pretty well. Like opposite of Ko Wrong, where she's had people medevac. She really had no sort of. She could not place on the jury who she wanted to place on the jury. At this point, her end game is kind of it's like ducks. They're just like our ducks are in a row. You know, she's gotten everyone who is left in the game. She wants to be in the game besides Tiffany. So if she's able to get Tiffany out, this is kind of like her final four in heaven. This is what she wants right here. Her and the three guys, the three new era men. So right now, I think it would be a stock up for Aubrey, even though I would rank it Jonathan and then Tiffany and then her.
I thought this was a good Joe episode. I mean, he's obviously not going to win, but if he had more episodes like he did today, I mean, he would have a much better case. I mean, he won an immunity. I thought he was actually pretty strategic with most of the things that he did. Yeah, Joe, stock up.
For me, it's also Aubrey. I think she is getting what she wants, and I don't think it'd matter unless it was a season exactly like this where she had a ton of her friends on the jury, but she does, and that's the game she's playing for. And I think it's ultimately kind of all coming up Aubrey. And does she deserve it? No, we can be honest about it. We don't
We
have to
can be
lie
honest.
here. No, she doesn't. Obviously, she's not even in the top 2 of players left here. But based off what we've seen, the edit in particular, like it's pretty obvious. At the very least, she makes the final 3, I would think. So stock up for her. Stock down time, Mike.
I think it's Rizzo. I'm going to kind of lump Joe and Rizzo into this because, I mean, as much as I love Joe, and I do agree with everything Theo said, like, that actually was a very good, physical and potentially strategic episode from Joe. I just don't agree with the strategic moves. So, like, I think he is playing a more strategic game. I just don't agree with the moves. I don't agree with his move, and I don't agree with Rizzo's move. I think from Jonathan's lens, you can argue it both ways, but I think he can actually beat Aubrey in the final 3. I don't think Joe or Rizzo can beat Aubrey in the final 3. So I thought their path would have been much cleaner taking Aubrey out. I think that Jonathan can get to the final 3 either way. I think he can genuinely pick his poison here. I don't think he can beat Suri, obviously, but I think if his final 3 has Aubrey next to it and Rizzo, I think Jonathan absolutely can win. But for Joe and Rizzo, the reason why I'm stocked down both of them is I thought that overall the move here, like you were with Suri the whole merge, like you were kind of with it the whole time, and now you jump ship. I just don't agree with the timing because in this move everything is timing. I mean, Aubrey's pointed out multiple times when you do things matter. So for them to turn on Suri here at Final 6 when she's losing so many other allies, it just feels like it's kind of it's a cop out. It feels like it's very safe to me. Like I know getting Suri out is not a safe. Like that's that's a big move. It's a big vote out, but the way it happened was pretty safe. Like you said last week with Rizzo getting Ozzy out, like the way it happened wasn't really. Rizzo can't take credit for it with the way it happened. It was already going that way. With this, it was already going Suri's way the second Tiffany won individual immunity. So I thought Joe and Rizzo, they could have done something to potentially save her. I know Rizzo couldn't use his idol for her, but Rizzo and Joe's vote themselves could have saved Suri tonight. They could have voted out Aubrey and then left Jonathan as the lone person voting incorrectly, and then they could have set up for an easier endgame. but Joe and Rizzo ultimately decided to vote with Jonathan. They want to vote together as a 3-person duo. I think that works maybe well for Jonathan. I don't think it works well at all for Joe and Rizzo's game.
Yeah, I'd say Rizzo too. I think Joe and Rizzo I agree they made the same decision. They had different paths, different like things that they wanted to do. Rizzo came into the season talking about like being one of the greatest players of all time. Like
Yeah.
that's what he was saying.
Right.
Feels like a
That's
lifetime ago.
that's the conversations that he wanted to be in, and he obviously was in an uphill battle here to like the odds that like everyone on the jury was gonna have a ton of respect for him at the end were very slim. But it's just like never make a splash, really. Like yeah, I thought. Like I thought we were gonna get a different Rizzo experience. Like I thought he would make a huge move, maybe at 12, and it would be too early, and then he would maybe become a huge threat, and then he's out. But like I don't know, like he was a part of that Wizard of Oz alliance that we were all excited about, and then he kind of tore it down,
Yeah.
but like without it even like being much of a spectacle. So that's why he's getting stocked down.
It's a far wimpier version of the game we just watched him play, which I think that does him the most disservice because we just watched him play a similar game way better than the one he's playing right now.
Yeah.
So it's like, damn, dude, like what went wrong here? And then you see in the comments who are like, you had to do what you had to do. Like, you could have done something else though that
Yeah.
probably would have propelled you a little more. That was a little bit smarter. But my stock down here, yeah,
Go
sorry.
ahead. Well, I was gonna say because I think I'm just gonna another point of the Rizzo thing. I thought he was gonna like idle out a huge. I thought he was gonna maybe idle out Devins, maybe idle out. I don't know how he was gonna do it, but like Theo said and like you said, he needed a splash, and we just saw him play a game which was very theatrical and drama. If he did that to one of these big threats, I think that had he actually done something with the idol, because now it's just you have to play at a Final Five or you just keep it as a souvenir. And at this point, there's not really enough threatening people left. Like maybe he idles out Jonathan. I don't know, but we talked about it last week. Remember last season with 49 with Blue Sophie, she needed to make a big move and maybe waited too long to make it. I think with Rizzo, there was ample amount of time to actually make that move. So I think the commenters saying, hey, you had to do what you got to do. There were other avenues to make splashier moves and to get yourself into the Final Five as a potential winner with high win equity.
My stock down here is Jonathan, who I genuinely think cost himself $2 million. Because if they vote out Aubrey here, then in the final five, if he wins immunity over Tiff or Joe does, they can get out Tiff. And then in your final four, it's Rizzo, Joe, Jonathan, and Sari. And Jonathan is guaranteed a spot in the final three and is probably guaranteed a win. Because yes, Sari's there lingering, but there's no doubt about it that Joe or Jonathan wins that final four immunity. Okay. The other one then goes to fire against Sari. And especially if it's Jonathan who wins and it's Joe versus Sari in fire, that is wraps, folks. Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
And Jonathan would also wipe the floor with Sari in fire as well. So to me, if I'm Jonathan, the path was right in front of me. It couldn't have been more clear. And he muddled it big time today because now you can't just easily beat someone like Aubrey in fire. You can't, I don't think, easily beat someone like Tiff in fire. I think they can, hold their own to an extent against anyone except Joe. So Jonathan had a chance to control his path, and this exact move derailed that. So to me, he's the clear stock down because I think, honestly, heading into this vote in particular, he probably was in the driver's seat of this thing. As weird as it sounds, he had all the autonomy. He basically had the fate of Sari, Aubrey, and Tiffany in his hands in the next few votes. As long as he beat Tiffany once, which I think to an extent, like, is Tiffany really going to win a fourth immunity before Jonathan wins a second, before Joe wins another? I just feel like that's so implausible. So it's a little bit risky keeping Sari in the game until the final four. I get that. But if you stack it properly, which again, all you had to do was one of you or Joe win immunity. That shouldn't be that hard against this cast. All you have to beat is Tiffany. That's it. So that like it's right in front of you and you can't accomplish it because you get scared over Sari's aura, basically.
Yeah, I see the point there because in theory, if he just takes Aubrey out, you have a clean. All you have to do is beat Tiffany, and you're basically winning the game.
Yeah,
but it is risky. It is risky leaving Sari in at Final Four because you run the risk of like, what if it's just a fluke challenge that Rizzo wins? I mean, even if Rizzo wins it, like he's not going to take Suri with him. So
Yeah, no.
yeah. I mean, in any combination, I don't know. I think in his mind, he thinks he's playing a better game than Aubrey, anyways. But like we mentioned, and again, we're Monday morning quarterbacking it, but you would think that Jonathan on the island would say, hey, Aubrey's got a lot of friends in that
But
jersey.
are we though? Because we're not coming to the conclusion that she has friends from watching the season. It's kind of obvious heading in that
You
she had
should know
all
that
these
going
friends.
in. Yeah, you should know that by day 24 or whatever we're on right now. So yeah, you should know that at the time. But I think it was, again, it's clouding. It's Cerie's aura. It's the risk of leaving her in the game where she'd mop everybody. Because obviously heading into Final Five, like we would rank them Cerie 1, Jonathan 2, whatever it is. But obviously we don't think Cerie can win her way to the end. Jonathan can. So Jonathan would be in the driver's seat absolutely from a backseat position. Like Cerie would be the biggest threat heading into the Final Five, but he would be in the driver's seat to win the game. I think it's interesting. I don't know. Like you can make an argument that all three of them have, like Jonathan, Joe, and Rizzo, all three of them made the wrong move here, and it cost all different. Yeah, I think it cost Jonathan the win potentially. I think it cost Joe or Rizzo maybe a seat in the final three. I don't know how it's going to transpire, but again, Cerie's not winning her way to final three.
In a way, it might have got him a seat in the final three because now they're
they're the goats.
They're the biggest goats
right.
on the island. So perhaps it got him 10K more. But
maybe it did. Yeah, maybe it did. I don't know, but I think that right now the way, if you just take Aubrey out and put Cerie in, maybe Jonathan's weary of Cerie, Tiffany, and Rizzo as a three controlling the final five vote, and he's stuck there with Joe as like we're going to be picked off 5 and 4 if we don't win immunity. But like if that's the risk you're running, like I think that Rizzo is already going to try to vote out Cerie.
100%.
Yeah. So
no one is leaving one of those two in. Even Rizzo would be like, "Yeah, I'll just play with Jonathan."
He would go
that's
with
how I saw it.
Yeah, he would turn on Tiffany and Cerie. If we just play the hypothetical, if Aubrey's voted out tonight and the final five are Rizzo, Tiffany, Cerie, Jonathan, and Joe, Rizzo seemingly would be the swing. Tiffany and Cerie are voting together. Jonathan and Joe are voting together. It depends on what side Rizzo goes on.
To be honest, I don't even know if Cerie and Tiffany vote together because Cerie could be like, yeah, Tiffany is clearly a winner's threat still left. Like she is, you know.
I do think it was telling that they voted together tonight. Like I thought if it was truly like Tiffany could have cut her loose tonight, and she chose to vote with her still. So maybe at Final Five it would change. It would be 4-1, Cerie's out or whatever. But Rizzo's guaranteed 4, and he would probably be the swing vote in a Final Five, whether to keep Cerie in the game or not to keep Cerie in the game. And maybe they were just worried about a Tiffany immunity run. I don't know what it could possibly have been, but yeah, I mean, leaving Aubrey in the game to me feels way more dangerous, way more scary than leaving Cerie in for 1 more vote or 2 more votes.
I mean, look, we're heading in to the finale next week. The preview wasn't much. The only other thing we skipped over, Sia, she couldn't even show up. She had to let us vote for the fan favorite of this season. It's a great tax write-off that she does annually. We might as well get the check now. I don't even know what the point of doing this is, but, maybe she'll donate it to whoever is in second place. She's like, yeah, I won enough of these game shows. Here you go. Who would get second in that?
Fan voting?
Yeah.
Ooh, that's a tough one, actually.
Would it be Mother Vive getting robbed?
That's the name I was going to throw. Her game aged brilliantly.
It really did.
She gave the boomerang idol to Ozzy, who got voted out with an idol in his pocket.
Yeah.
And then the person she wanted out of the game was Aubrey, who is probably going to win the game.
I mean, Mother Vive to the end, man.
Yeah. I think people did love Devins' style. I think they liked Christian's humor. I think they liked Ozzy's redemption arc.
Yeah, no, it's Devins. It's Devins. You're right.
Devins, and the way Devins went out. I mean, I think everyone was rooting for Devins at the end. It was a very losing Devins and Cerie in one episode. I haven't checked anything on social media, but I'm assuming that they are irate about that. Obviously, I'm really bummed.
Cities are being burned right now, if I had to guess.
And that's why Theo mentioned earlier these final five aren't interesting together. So that's why the trailer didn't give us much, because it's like, okay, like I like some of these people individually. Like I'm obviously a big Joe fan. I think Tiffany's playing really, really well. Jonathan, I think, is playing a really good game. Aubrey's obviously in the shadows, and then Rizzo, I liked on 49 a lot. But them together, this final five, it doesn't really have like, I don't know. It's like we're losing, like we don't have like aura. I don't know what the word is these days. But
you want to know the problem? We have one winner's case that's gonna last, but the way it's gonna happen is they're gonna be next to someone who can just probably sympathize with the jury, because we have to assume there's no way both Tiffany and Jonathan make it to the end. Those are the last 2 true winners cases that we have here. So whether it's Tiffany and Aubrey or Jonathan and Aubrey, it's just like Aubrey's gonna be able to finagle her way, and it's gonna make it closer than it probably should be based off the merit of what we're watching right now. I think that's what we're all like kind of preparing for here.
I just wish that we got like I remember on 47 we had like Rachel versus Genevieve, and then watch out for Sam if he wins just a one of individual immunity challenge. Like we had some like legitimate, like we had Sue, we had Teeny, whatever, but like we had some actual like winner cases heading into the final five finale on 47. I think 48 it was the same thing. It was like, can Joe win? Can Kyle win? Can Camille win? I know you guys don't think Joe ever had a chance of winning. I obviously thought that heading into that finale at 48, take out Mitch, the other four can like it it was Kyle Camilla versus Joe Eva. Who can get the votes at the end?
Mike, Mitch is still waiting for his big move.
He's still waiting for the big move, of course. And again, whatever. But in the final five,
Is Aubrey playing a Mitch style game?
I was just gonna ask that, is Aubrey Mitch in this season? But it might actually work, like waiting forever to make a move. If you get to the final three without a move, you can just be like, hey, I got a lot of friends here. I don't need to make a move. Look at all my friends on the jury.
What if Mitch had all of his neighborhood friends on the jury? He just wins the season.
He actually did though. If you look
Remember
at the jury,
my season from 7 years ago? I was awesome on that, guys, right?
I mean, if you look at Mitch's, actually on 48, Mitch had a lot of OG. I forget what that tribe name was called, but it was the OG Orange tribe. It was like Chrissy was there, David was there, and in this case, Kyle, Camilla potentially are also there. There was a lot of OG, that tribe. I forget what that tribe's name is. That maybe could have liked Mitch. I don't know, but Aubrey is playing a little bit of a Mitch game from 48.
Now, I think the funniest thing with Aubrey, she's played twice since Go Wrong. You know, I don't think we mentioned that once, have we?
We have
like
not.
We have, but we as in Survivor, I don't think they have one. Like you would think that Aubrey played once,
Only Go Wrong.
played this brilliant game, which she to an extent did, got screwed at the end. We don't necessarily think so, but I think, to be honest, when we talk about like the unjust winners, there are a lot of people that lump that as like number one. It's not on our short list, but a lot of people put that atop that pedestal. So if that was her only game, like, okay, like, then this could be a different story, because then she could be skating through the end. She was this massive strategical mastermind last go round, and she tried to diminish her threat level. I've seen that comment a ton on our content, a ton. That she is intentionally diminishing her threat level. That would all make sense if she didn't then play two other times and stink up the joint those two other times. That's the problem.
By the way, you know what diminished her threat level? Edge of Extinction. That really diminished her threat level. That was a really bad showing. I mean, by the way, no one has brought up her Game Changers game. I don't think even Aubrey's brought it up. She's brought up Go Wrong like 5 times in the last 2 weeks. She hasn't even brought up her Game Changers game, which, by the way, she finished 5th. But I don't even think she likes that own game. So yeah, like we've seen her play twice since Go Wrong, and she wasn't like this phenomenal player in either of those 2 seasons. So I don't like. What am I missing here?
So the biggest advantage you can get in the game of Survivor is an immunity idol, especially with the way the game is played now with all these advantages. So Edge of Extinction, she goes home with an idol in her pocket. Season 50, the season of advantages, she gets an advantage. Instead of using it as an advantage, it becomes so disadvantageous to her that she just publicly gets rid of it and throws it away and is like, this is hurting me more than helping. It's supposed to be one of the most helpful things in the game.
She doesn't need it. She's like, it's a Scarlet Letter. I don't want it. I don't even want it. I'm going to use my own.
I mentioned she got punked as a thing. It's a Scarlet Letter. If it was such a Scarlet Letter, Rizzo would have been taken to the back months ago. What are we talking about here?
Rizzo's saying, I'm on day 49 of having an idol. I've had an idol more than I haven't had an idol in this game. I mean, he's got an idol. He just has it in his pocket the whole time. I mean, he's just kept it with him from both. He's played back to back. He's had the idol the entire time. So obviously, Aubrey did not love having the idol. She didn't love it on Edge of Extinction. I don't think she's just a great player with the idol. Like, I think at some point, maybe she just doesn't need it. Maybe she's just a better player.
I think at this point, I have to wonder how great of a player she is, period, to be totally honest with you.
100%.
If you're worse with advantages than without, that's a point to your strategic acumen. If you can't properly channel an advantage and use it as an advantage, like that is a mark that should go against.
By the way, Theo, one she did not earn. It was gifted to her by Billie Eilish.
It was gifted to her. She didn't find it. She found it in her bag.
Billie Eilish, who doesn't even know who Aubrey is, basically is going to give her the win here in $2 million thanks to Jimmy. Oh, sorry, Mr. Beast.
By the way, X, on both beaches that she was with, Genevieve found the idol. So she found it on Vatu's beach with Aubrey, and then she found it on Kalo's beach with Aubrey. So it's not like Aubrey was out there finding idols she just didn't want. she didn't find any idol. She was gifted an idol, and then she just got punked into playing it. And again, some people
By the
do.
way, Genevieve, smart enough to check her bag in case she had an idol. She couldn't have thought that one was going to be magically planted there by, again, Billie Eilish. But who's really the bad guy, Mike? That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, again, Aubrey has Billie Eilish to thank for this season for sure. But I mean, I just think that ultimately, and some people do think that playing without advantages is like a plus. They're like, hey, if they didn't even need advantages to play this game, that's that's a plus for their game. But I do kind of agree that like if you're worse with the advantage, it's a disadvantage. Like you're not like that. What does that say about your game if you don't even like? I know she doesn't need it to win the game, obviously potentially,
I
but
mean, look, she's played 4 times, Mike. There's an argument. She's been a mid to lower end strategist more so than the elite one that she showed in Ko.
yeah, I think the Korong is still her best game up to this point. Like I know that she's technically way better socially this time around, but she just has more friends this time around. Like
Yes, that's exactly the problem.
She only had her brainiacs on the jury. I think she only had like two of them on the jury, Debbie and Joe. That was her only friends because they were the only people she talked to. It was the brainiacs and then Sydney. So this season with 24 people, there's a lot of Aubrey friends. So it's just a lot more friends this time around. I don't know if it's a better game than Ko-Rong. I think Aubrey's Ko-Rong game was really good.
God, no. It's not even close. It's not even comparable.
But she's going to say that I played a much better end game, which technically isn't wrong because look at how the end game is turning out. It's her and 4 doofuses. Not disrespect. I mean, again, I think Jonathan's playing a good game. I think Joe and Rizzo are.
He's a doofus. We can say it. He will be on our first team all Survivor, but we've been kind of ragging on the quality of games for weeks now.
Yeah.
Where we're like, whatever it is, whether it's
that.
the too many twists, whether it's the shortening of days plus the size of the cast, we've yet to figure it out. But outside of Suri, there hasn't been like a standout game. And I'm sorry, even if Aubrey wins that, she's not going to be in that. I'm sorry, it's not.
No, but even with the diminishing amount of good gameplay this season, I figured Final 5 we have at least 2 or 3 really good ones left. Maybe Devins can crawl his way to 5 and then just be a Final 5 boot.
I think Tiffany would be a really good win because it means she wins 2 more immunities. She somehow escaped multiple times from being on the bottom. Her strategic game, I think, improved dramatically. Even with the things that, like, she can take credit the Sandra route by being like, look, I told you guys we needed to get Rizzo's idol out, and you saw what happened. We had limited options. She can play that. I think that'd be a brilliant win. Everyone else, including Jonathan, who I think is playing a winning-esque game, no, it'd be more indicative of we had too big of a cast and we were left with this because of all the twists and the insistency of getting through this as fast as we possibly can.
And I do think the amount of twists definitely diminished the overall gameplay. Like it's like there's only so much you could do because of the twist. Like we couldn't strategize this much because the twist had this. Tristan's voting for himself, so we can't even. Okay, I guess we have to vote him out. Like there's just too many. Like Mr. Beast flipped a coin. Okay, I guess we have to vote, but this person now. So it was a lot of stuff. But even then, I thought that heading into the final 5, like if you told me that Tiffany is one of the strongest games left heading into the final 5, I'd be like, wait, really? She didn't have a confessional till day 11 or 12. Like Jonathan, I think he's playing a much better strategic game than 42. Like he can at least tell a story at the end of like, hey, I didn't need to win a bunch of immunities. He's got one individual immunity to win this season right now, and it's by a technicality. Like he can actually tell a different story of his game. I think he and Tiff can both do that from their first time around for sure. But like on a season of a bunch of legends, if you told me Jonathan and Tiffany with 5 people left are the 2 people that are playing the best game, I'm like, what happened to Suri and Ozzy and Devins and Christian? Like, what happened to all these people that we had high hopes for heading into the season? It felt like a lackluster end game, which I know Jeff's going to disagree with.
Well, about the confessionals, this is from a Sam Fallon Supernova fan account on Twitter. Shout out to Sam. But anyway, heading in tonight with 2 episodes left, and this is comparing not to returning season winners, but the last couple seasons. This is how many confessionals Aubrey needed in the last 2 episodes to match recent winners. She needed 52 to match Savannah, 60 to match Kyle, 54 for Rachel, 43 for Kenzie, 31 for D.
She could catch Kenzie or D, but I don't think it's gonna happen. Like it's not gonna happen. It's that tells you a lot.
Like on 50, they couldn't put the winner on our screen. Like assuming this is where it goes. Obviously, we don't know.
Large cast, but I'm with you. That is
nearly as much as recent winners.
No, even Christian is like the runaway confessional person right now. He's out. He was out 3 or 4 episodes ago. He still has the most confessional in the season by a pretty wide margin, I believe. So we'll see if Aubrey can catch those recent winners. I don't know, but
And
unlike
it felt like she was getting confessionals today just because she's gonna make it far. Like there was a lot of nothing burgers in there. And obviously when you have like 80 confessionals, not all are gonna be, profound. But to be honest, her profound rate on these confessionals is very slim. Like I'm not getting much from her at all. We're getting a lot of it's time to make a big move. It's late. I was
here's what
Cover
happened on
wrong. It didn't go
Go
my way,
Wrong.
Mike. It didn't go my way. But we're here. We're in the end game. I need to play an end game like Michelle, who, by the way, I don't think should have beat me, but I have to play an end game like her because that's apparently what these people respect.
The amount of confessionals that made the episode of talking about Michelle and talking about Co Wrong, comparing Tiffany to Michelle, comparing this person to Co Wrong. I mean, a lot of confessionals of Co Wrong. I mean, again, you would think that she'd only played one time, but a lot of those confessionals that I was like, okay, I get it. Co Wrong happened. She lost in the end by a couple votes. We get it. But yeah, that's what it's giving me. A lot of confessionals about Co Wrong, and even despite that, I don't think there's any way she can catch any of those other winners. Like they couldn't show us enough of Aubrey without talking about Co Wrong.
And by the way, this season we've had a 3-hour premiere. We've had a few 2-hour episodes. Every episode's been 90 minutes. It hasn't been like that for all those other seasons. So we've also had just more screen time. Granted, yes, a bigger cast. Yes, I see the comments. Okay, fine. But still, there's no reason why if she was playing as good as she thinks she's playing, we could have gotten a bit more of her. Any final thoughts heading into the finale?
I hope we get an interesting I hope there's a big move coming. I don't even know what the big move would be per se, but I just hope we get
We're out. I feel
we're
like
out of
we're
big
out.
move. I know we're out. I don't know if like what if Rizzo idles Aubrey out of the I don't know what could happen at this point in time, but something's gotta
Rizzo finds an idol, plays one for himself, plays the other for the person going home.
Yes.
And I don't know. It'd have to be absurd.
It would take insane
And then
amount
he wins immunity somehow, and then he puts himself in fire. Like it has to be so preposterous.
Yeah, can anyone find an idol at Final 5? We've seen it happen with Ben, and I think we saw it happen with Devins, where it's like they save their game at Final 5, and then they make fire, whatever it is. So we'll see if the only idol left is Rizzo, but there obviously are still idols on the beach. Like they're not expired. They don't stop hiding them. Final 5 is the last time to play them, but Devins nor Suri found idols at 7 or 6, but there is still an idol out there allegedly. Like there should still be after Devins played his last tribal. Another one theoretically does go out back into the wild, and obviously Ozzy went home with an idol. So again, one would go back into play. You would assume.
I'll be in on Aubrey if at Final Tribal she pulls Ozzy aside and privately reveals her whole game to him, and then goes and sits back down.
if she if she's like, hey Ozzy,
I have this pact for Final 2. Like it's gonna be it's gonna be me and Joe. Like I'd be back in if she pulled that. That'd be hilarious.
That would be
Mike,
hilarious.
I'm actually in on Aubrey if she finds the idol and saves herself here. Then I'm in. I'm like, fine. You know what? Fine. Whatever. I'm like, we have no one left. Fine. Take it.
If she gets to the end and actually pulls off a good idol play, I'd be like, okay, you know what? That's enough in this season to win. That is enough for me. I'm with you. I agree.
Yeah,
We're running out of options.
We're running out of options so fast.
If she does that, that'll be the picture that sticks in my head of her this season, instead of the one of her jumping for the overhead target and being the only one to completely swing and miss.
Completely with on it.
Before we go, I feel like whoever wins here, unless it's Tiffany, they're in the worst winner since blank camp, right?
Yeah, even in the new era, like I feel like the seasons have been mad, but I feel like we've been satisfied with the winners pretty consistently.
I was
Besides Charlie, that's the only one I can think of people really had a problem with.
Yeah, but I don't think Kenzie was a bad winner per se. I just think that she wasn't the correct person to win. Right. That gets mixed. Like I think that the season that Gabler won, it was like 3 goats at the end. Like Jesse dominated the game or whatever it was, and I would have voted for Cassidy personally, but Owen did nothing the whole game. It's like, well, Gabler had a good social game, so Gabler wins. So I think that there's a few that I'm like, that was not a good winning game. But like with Kenzie, I don't think Kenzie was the correct person to win that. I think Charlie was easily the best player on that season. But I don't think Kenzie's game was bad. Like I think Gabler's game was kind of nothing. Kenzie had a game. She had a case to tell. And while Q's vote made no sense to give it to her, and while Maria's vote made no sense to give it to her, she had the fire in her eyes. Like, okay, whatever. She still did win. She got 5 out of 8 votes, whatever it is. This one would be like if Tiff wins, that'd be a legitimate win. If Jonathan wins, I think it'd be a legitimate win. Outside of that, it's not a good winning season by whoever wins.
Worst winner since Edge, where again the gimmick's not on trial, like whatever. But come on, who we fooling here?
Yeah, I think it's the worst win since Gabler.
Okay, yeah.
I
was gonna say if you've been voted out and win, you're immediately on the list for me. Sorry, even if Devin's won, that includes one of my faves.
Yep.
If you were voted out and win, whatever. But yeah, it's a tough list, and I don't think necessarily it'll be covered that way. Besides from us, the truth tellers on the Survivor community forums. But I mean, how can you even argue it? Like, as far as like, just think of the categories like social game. The social game comes down to people she already knew. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
She hasn't won anything as of this point. And as far as controlling things, she's mostly controlled things by the others thinking the opposition is a bigger threat than her. No, I don't think that's actually controlling anything.
No, this is where I get with you. I'm like, are you actually driving? Are you leading the vote? I think Jonathan's driving. I think Joe and Aubrey are like trying to get in the passenger seat, and Rizzo's in the backseat with the idol. I don't know. I think Jonathan's driving the votes per se. I know Tiffany just got left out of this vote, but I think that overall, like, yeah,
not super eloquently, but I agree with you.
Right, they're driving into other things, but I mean, it's still like, is Aubrey the passenger? I don't know. I don't know.
We're running things over. They're like, oh my god, there's a seal. Watch out, please.
Watch out for that. Yeah, it's like the end of The Hangover 2, where they're coming back from Bangkok to Thailand, and we know who's driving. So it was one of those things. But ultimately, yeah, it feels like this will be one of those worst winners. But I do think at least Aubrey has a story to tell. So you can say theoretically, okay, I played 4 times. I'm getting through it now. Same thing with Joe. Same thing with Rizzo. I think there's a story to tell. Rizzo can be like, hey, I just played back-to-back seasons. With Joe, you can be like, hey, I just played 48 and 50 and got no votes cast against me in either of those seasons and got to the final 3 both times, playing a similar honor integrity game. Like, that would be pretty damn impressive, even if he doesn't play much of a game outside of that. Like, you could argue a few different things where I think those 3, Tiffany and Jonathan, I think, are actually legitimate, decent winners. If the other 3 win it, Aubrey, Joe, or Rizzo, I think they're better winners than Gabler. So I'd say it's worst winner since Gabler is what my answer would be.
Anything else, guys? Theo, anything?
I mean, I think Tiffany would be a good winner, just with the whole like talk of pre-gaming kind of clouding this whole season. Like, it kind of seems like she's one of the ones that pre-gamed the least. So I think it'd be a good precedent if she's able to win the season.
By the way, I only have Tiffany left on my team, so that's the only person I have left. Devin's going out today with my first pick. I'm holding on to my 19th pick, which was Tiffany. You have Jonathan and Rizzo. You have Aubrey and Joe. So I'm not in a good spot. I only got one person.
No, I think I'm retaining my belt, Mike. I think I'm getting it again.
Joe's winning, huh? Oh, no, Aubrey. Oh, Joe's taking it. Oh, goodness gracious.
Anyway, if you've listened this long, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. We have a really fun project we've teased for weeks. It'll be on your screens in no time, so be on the lookout for that. We'll be back next week with Survivor's finale. I believe we're going to do something else either before or after, if not both, for Survivor as well. We talked about maybe doing a tier ranking and award show. If we don't do one of those in podcast form, we'll try to get like a post or a clip up for that as well. So that content will be out there. Our ballots will be cast, whether it's on this platform or over on like Instagram and TikTok. Regardless, you will see who makes first team all Survivor, which I mean, that voting is going to be really tough. There were some people we had locked in on that. And now it's like, I don't know. I don't know. Most improved has changed like 6 times already. The only thing we know is MVP.
That's it.
Sharif Fields. So yeah. Anyway, after this horrible 24 hours for us where we had to sit through this episode of Survivor, and now look forward, air quotes, to the finale. For Theo, for Mike, I'm X. We are the Gurus. We will see you next time. Peace.